You can't imagine how incredibly jacked I am for the 2021 college football season, especially based on what we've got brewing here at the Voice of College Football. Many announcements to deliver to you in the next few weeks concerning our coverage of college football for the 21 season. Welcome in on a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Of course, we are here to talk college football first and foremost with you. You ultimately produce the show, regardless of our topic for the night. You produce the show with your comments and questions that I will respond to, all of them. And the rest of the time tonight, we do have two guests lined up, but I will be going through the comments and questions that come into the videos on the channels because I have not had the time, or taken the time, I should say, to be more accurate about it, to squeeze down a little less sleep to respond to all the comments that come into the channel. So there are comments that come in all the time that I think, man, I want to respond to that. So I want everyone to know that I appreciate all the questions and comments that come in on the videos that I can't get to all the time. We got a quick 15 on the line. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We are standing by with David Waters from Gators Breakdown to discuss the Florida Gators, and a little bit later in the hour, Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football to talk his beloved Kentucky Wildcats. Keep in mind that you can join us on Patreon, 17 cents a day. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and what do you get? Anybody that has joined us on Patreon knows what the deal is. You get an exclusive live stream every week per request. An exclusive live stream that can only be seen by patrons over there on the Voice of College Football community each week per request. Also, for the last two college football seasons, all my predictions have been stored on Patreon. That would have made you a little bit of pocket change there. The predictions that I deliver each and every week during the college football season on Patreon, as well as our insider tips from Steve Merrill from Pro Sports Info and Wager Talk. He delivers those on Patreon, as well as you get some insider looks at the Voice of College Football and what we've got going here and trying to build out the vision. So I appreciate everybody being here again. We got Gators Breakdowns, David Waters, hopefully coming on tonight, as well as Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football, as we look at the SEC Eastern Division, Kentucky and Florida. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section of any of the videos. Folks, that's all you got to do. If you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. It's the same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny. Don't have to do anything different except click that link. Use that when you shop on Amazon. Also, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Spell it out, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. No, the voiceofcollegefootball.com. Check it out. And what we are attempting to do this summer is set up a fantasy football league and also a pick'em league. So don't hold me to that. I'm going in about 18 different directions, but I would like to put together a pick'em league and also a fantasy football league. So I'll be transparent in saying I'm efforting, working with our web designer to provide that for us at voiceofcollegefootball.com. In the meantime, go to the site, register for free up at the top of the screen. Register for free right there, voiceofcollegefootball.com, where right now we've got a ton of links there to video content that we've got available on our various team channels. And again, we want to provide each even more there at our website. And you can contribute right here at the Super Chat, but also Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just go to Mark Rogers TV. So if you're a Cash App person, Venmo, PayPal, and you want to contribute and bypass YouTube, the way you do that is you just hit Mark Rogers TV. You can find us there, and we appreciate the contribution. All right. Before I get to any comments that have come into the channel recently, I'm going to check out to see what you guys have going on tonight. Lewis, I believe, has just been injected with a jolt of enthusiasm and optimism for Michigan's football season, because it's just here. Lewis is always chiming in, always supporting, always retweeting and sharing the links and doing all that. But just here recently, Lewis seems to be very fired up for Michigan's football season. He seems to be very optimistic about what maybe the Maize and Blue will do this year. Let's go to David Waters from Gators Breakdown, who's hunkered down there in the middle of a storm, I believe. David.
What's up, Mark? Yeah, tropical storm. They also just rolled through Jacksonville here, so dealing with a little bit of aftermath of that right now. Power going in and out and flooding everywhere around. Luckily, not too bad where I'm at, but we got to keep an eye on it.
David, we know you're a gamer, so I will never doubt that, but just making sure everybody's good, everybody's safe, everybody's
good. We had a tornado warning about a couple hours ago. Probably it was about within 2 miles of us where it ended up landing, so not too far away, but where I'm at, we're all good.
So how would you weigh the concern over the tornado warnings and the tropical storms and all that come through the state versus Florida football fans' concern about the recruiting right now?
I would say I don't know if concern is the right word, because I think there's a little bit of apathy in there. I think they're kind of used to this is what they're going to get with Dan Mullen. It's going to be a class, if you want to use 24/7 or Rivals or whoever you use rankings, it's going to be 8th through 12th recruiting class, and knowing that they're going to get developed. And will that be enough? History says that you got to have a lot of breaks bounce your way if you want to be able to consistently compete for an SEC national championship or anything like that. If you're not recruiting top 5 at year after year. So I think the fan base is kind of maybe getting used to it. We'll see where it ends up there. I will say, Mark, the coming off of June, especially early June, their early returns were good. There does seem to be a new vibe, but that doesn't necessarily mean the vibe will pay off. I mean, they've gotten a lot of 5 stars on campus. They've gotten a lot of highly rated guys on campus. But, you're still losing those state of Florida kids that are going out of state and going to Ohio State, Alabama, or whatever. But, we'll see where it ends up. There's still Walter Nolan's still out there, a big target for Florida. They're in the thick of it. I think if he was to pick now, if he was to pick a school right now, I'd say Florida would be the pick. But that's Michigan, Georgia, I think, are the top 2 competition there. And then, we'll see. That's the big Evan Stewart, wide receiver out of Texas as well. But look, these are out-of-state guys. I'm not talking in-state guys. I'm talking out-of-state guys that are highly rated, that Florida has really, really good chances with. So we'll have to see where it ends up. But, Mark, it all comes down. Florida's just got to get better with the highly ranked kids in the state of Florida.
Yeah, so it's a battle on 2 fronts here, because there's the monster in division, Georgia, Kirby Smart recruiting out of his mind again. And then there's that comparison that's got to go on, even though they're playing in a different conference, Miami and Florida State, the battle for the great players in arguably the best state in the country, right there with Texas, for those Florida players. So I'm sure your show gets lit up with, and the message boards and everything else, not just, again, trying to chase Georgia. And in a sense, it's not a chase. You beat them last year, but that's how it's viewed, chasing down Georgia from a talent perspective, but also staying ahead of Miami and Florida State. They're not in the best position in terms of where their programs are, but they both seem to have some juice, both Miami and Florida State.
Yeah, a lot of it's wait and see. Gator fans always point to, this is the same way we were talking about Tennessee last year, and their top 5, top 10 recruiting class at one point, it crashed and burned. So, like I said, we know what Dan Mullen's going to do as far as his recruiting class and probably where it's going to end up. Florida fans, I think, while FSU and Miami fans probably do want to bark and kind of brag a bit maybe about where recruiting is at for them right now, Florida fans are not worried about that at all, about what FSU and Miami are doing in the recruiting world. Right now, it's results on the field are at least compared to those two schools, are what you can point to. And until those two schools consistently, since Dan Mullen's been at Florida, since those two schools consistently do what Florida has done since Dan Mullen's been there, I think the fan base is pretty content on what the comparisons are to those two schools right now. So, of course, you got to start somewhere, and especially what FSU's doing, coming off of Willie Taggart and Martin Norvell, his first year not being so successful his first year either. It is nice for, if you're a fan base, if you're a fan of that school, to see what recruiting is doing. And that probably it shows you the potential. It really shows the potential of what maybe Florida State can do. But I do think, Mark, I've always said, results on the field, that was a big thing about Dan Mullen when he come in. And, hey, if he starts winning, he'll start getting his recruits. Well, he's won, and recruiting's been about the same. I'm not so sure how much winning on the field can help recruiting. I do think losing can really hurt you in recruiting. Winning, I'm not so sure it pays off. Losing can hurt you a whole lot more in the recruiting world than winning can actually help you. So if FSU goes out there and wins a whole lot of games, they'll probably stay. They're not going to finish where they're at right now. That's just too much to ask. It's a very top-heavy class right now. You look at the depth of that class, their average would have to come way, way, way up to be up there with Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson in the end. But, you're probably looking at a top 15 class. But if they go out there and crash and burn and win 3 or 4 games, that class is going to crumble.
So when you look at Dan Mullen's recruiting efforts, and not just the results of it being ranked A, B, and C in that 8 to 12 range, but more so the approach, where he's going, how does that differ from what we saw under Muschamp and McElwain?
Mark, I mean, you were in that market for a while in Mississippi State, Starkville, and I brought plenty of people on when Dan Mullen was hired at Florida. And what we are getting in recruiting, it's exactly what we were told we were going to get in recruiting. He's not going to go out there. He's not going to be this live, eat, breathe, and die recruiting machine. He's not going to be that. We were told that, and that's exactly what Florida has gotten. He's got some friends on staff, that's some fan base part of the fan base would love to see him upgrade. John Hevesy in offensive line. Offensive line recruiting has not been great, and it kind of shows there at Florida. Running back recruiting, it's kind of different. I mean, you've been able to live through the transfer portal right there. And then high school recruiting, would you like for it to be better at running back? Sure, but you've got Lorenzo Lingard, DeMarcus Bowman out of the transfer portal. I mean, Florida's going to be 5 deep at running back this coming up season. Recruiting at the running back position is kind of taking care of itself, even though you haven't really signed high school recruits. And then you made some changes on the defensive side of the ball from last year with Torian Gray and Ron English out, and now Wesley McGriff and Jules Montanar in. So you have some defensive changes there on the coaching staff, and you'll see if those pay off. But I think maybe keeping some buddies on staff and not being the live, eat, die recruiting machine that so many other cut guys are in the country. That's what Dan Mullen is known for. That's what we're going to get. He's going to be a developer. He's not going to go out there and I mean, I think it's a very brash approach to the way he handles recruiting. I don't think it's all lovey-dovey and wine and dine recruits. I think it's pretty straight to the point. It's just kind of the way Dan Mullen is as well. So we'll see if it pays off. I think it's an awesome case study. I mean, he's at a school where he can get enough talent to compete. Can he get enough talent to compete consistently? Can he go out there and, when nobody's predicting Florida to win the SEC East this year, can he go out there and say, look, I can do it my way? And going into year 4, I'm not so sure when Dan Mullen was hired, we thought we would be asking ourselves that question still in year 4, but we are. I still don't think there's an ultimate answer for the way Dan Mullen coaches, Dan Mullen recruits, the way Dan Mullen develops. There's still an ultimate answer yet for how this is going to play out, ultimately in competing for SEC and national championships. Because
as you just framed what you reviewed there, David, I'm thinking expectations. And for me, the expectations for Florida football, looking even beyond and before Steve Spurrier, and then running through the Spurrier, Urban Meyer years and the whole deal, not going crazy that you're going to go to 2 national championship games in 3 years or anything like that. But considering the past, considering the brand, considering the location, considering all that, I got to think that this expectation for any coach should be that you win roughly 10 games every year. And therefore, you're going to put yourself in a position every few years to go to the SEC championship game. You should be like splitting SEC championship game appearances with Georgia, let's say.
Yeah.
Or, throw in the oddball year where somebody else gets into the mix. So maybe you're not going to quite half of the SEC championship games, but close. And as you stated off the top, basically, if you're competing for the SEC championship, you're competing for a national championship. That's all there is to it. You're that good. And if you're
Mark, the worst thing that probably could have happened to Dan Mullen was Ed Orgeron and LSU winning a national championship 2 years ago. I mean, because rosters are pretty comparable. You've got elite quarterback play, which you had at Florida last year, and the defense just the bottom fell out. And I'm not so sure Dan Mullen could have predicted or seen that. I don't think anybody predicted that, by the way. So, your 2020 was your shot. 2020 was the chance it was supposed to come all together for the development, and you had the development at the quarterback position. You had an all-world tight end. You had Kadarius Toney step up and be one of the country's best wide receivers. And if Florida would have had any defense from the last 10 years, they're a really good chance of in the playoff. But the defense didn't show up at all. And the year everybody was kind of pointing to for everything to come together just did not come together.
Yeah, because that team probably loses to Alabama in a classic, but they're undefeated going into that game. So they're in the playoff. Or maybe they beat Alabama.
One possession game with that sorry defense.
Sure.
I mean, who knows?
Well, that said, you bring us to the point of going into 2021. I know as you review the roster, the talent, and everything, you have that feeling of, okay, we're cycling up and man, can't wait to see this team. Or, of course, it's football season. We're interested, but realistically, we really don't have it this year. There's always that feel for where's the roster, look at the schedule. So I don't know that there's a team across the country that's at a high level that I see more discrepancy about predictions and projections than I see Florida. I see them solidly in a lot of people's top tens. Mm-hmm. Then I see other people saying, shoot, they lost all that offensive talent. They're barely in the top 25. They're going to win 7 or 8 games. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I was surprised. You go back to way too early polls right after the national championship game last year. And Florida is top 15-ish. Preseason magazines come out. I think Athlon had them 11. Lindy's had them 12. Then Phil Steele comes out a couple weeks ago. He doesn't have Florida ranked in his top 25 at all. Florida's not in his top 25. So, the discrepancy is, a top 15-ish team. That's what's mostly out there. But Phil Steele did open some eyes by not having Florida ranked in his top 25. So, when Dan Mullen was hired, Mark, Florida's getting a floor 8-win coach a year. Florida's going to be ranked with an 8-4 record. I have a hard time believing Florida is worse than 8-4 in 2021. And look, and I've asked this question too on our Gators Breakdown Plus chat room and all that stuff. I was like, and I posed the question, just because it's quote unquote a transition year, does that mean you lower expectations? And look, I mean, don't get me wrong. You get in trouble when you compare yourself to Alabama. 2021 is a transition year for Alabama as well. Expectations are still national championship. So Ohio State, Justin Fields is gone. You're losing some talent. You're losing your quarterback. Somewhat of a transition year. Expectation is still Big Ten national championship. For Florida, I'm not sure they're quite at that level, but Florida should be at that level to where you at least can say, all right, we're in a transition year. SEC East is still very, very attainable. And in some ways it is, but everybody's picking Georgia. The overwhelming favorite is Georgia. And, I'm not so sure, Gator fans, I go back to when Dan Mullen was hired, going into year 4, if you necessarily expected Georgia to be an overwhelming favorite over any Florida team in year 4 of Dan Mullen's tenure. So, like you said, it's just all over the place right now. I think you can say Florida's going to give Georgia a run for their money. The schedule is the big difference. You play Alabama, you play LSU before you even play Georgia. What do you look like going into that game? And if you have one loss going into that game, you're still in the thick of things. If you already have lost to Alabama and LSU, then you got your work cut out for you. So it schedules the equalizer there for at least Georgia to get a leg up on Florida by having to play Alabama. The same way Florida did last year. Florida was able to benefit by Georgia having to play Alabama before that game. And basically, you win that game, you got a 2-game advantage in the division. Georgia, I'm pretty sure, is looking at that same scenario this year with a game in Jacksonville. Florida's probably going to have a loss versus Alabama. We can step on their throat by beating them in Jacksonville. So it's expectations in a transition year are weird, but you are Florida. You're supposed to be at a level to where a transition year doesn't necessarily mean you can't go compete.
And as David alluded to, anybody who's tacking on a ton of losses to Florida automatically, you may want to check out the schedule because it's basically 4 automatic wins outside the conference.
Yep.
It's a 10th class in the SEC right now for 2022, 24th nationally. And that kind of led me into the conversation off the top as to are Florida fans alarmed by this? 10 hard commits right now. Who are the targets out there? Is there anything we can expect over the next 2 to 4 weeks?
Like I said, Nolan there on defensive line, and that's an Evan Stewart, the wide receiver out of Texas. Running back recruiting right now, it's kind of interesting, Mark. Katron Allen getting a lot of love for Penn State recently. I know that's a running back target for Florida. Terrence Gibbs, Jalen Glover are probably the 2 names there I think you can look out for. I think Florida wants to take 2 backs. As I said, Florida's 5 deep at running back this year, but more than likely you're going to lose Dameon Pierce, Malik Davis. Those 2 will be gone for sure. Naquan Wright, if he shows out, may go ahead and leave. Lorenzo Lingard can leave. I know he's been at a high school that long if he was to show out this year for Florida. So Florida could lose 4 running backs. So I think they're looking for 2 this year. Terrence Gibbs, Glover. Gibbs, I think, was once a 5-star or close to it. He's still a high-level 4-star. He's coming off a knee injury last year, Mark, and I think the staff – they may wait till Friday Night Lights. I think right now, if he was a full go, Florida would take his commitment. But I think they're going to look at him Friday Night Lights toward the end of July, have him work out, test that injury, make sure there's no nerve damage or anything like that. But I know he's a highly, highly ranked running back. I think, Florida could take him in the class they will. I think they just want to get one more workout in there just to kind of make sure that knee's okay. He did miss last year, as I said, with a serious knee injury. So we'll see where that goes. But Mark, that's kind of where it's at right now with the dead period coming off of June. You got some big targets still out there that Florida just needs to hit on, and what can they do at the running back position where they're going to need some help to kind of fill in the shoes for what they're going to lose after the 2021 season.
It's always a great conversation with David Waters from Gators Breakdown, who's been joining us forever. One of the very originals, to the point where we used to run a few channels ourselves together, David and myself. So you got to.
It's where the Breakdown name came from.
The Breakdown. There it is. We were all over the place with the Breakdown, the SEC Breakdown. Yes. So this is what you do, folks. If you're not familiar, just you can stay right here on YouTube. Just type it into the search bar, Gators Breakdown. You will not be disappointed. If you're an audio person, audio platforms, pretty much go across the board, right, David? Anywhere, find you.
All the platforms out there, as you said, YouTube version as well. Big episode this week, Mark. You had Nick Evers, Gators quarterback commit on the show.
I saw that.
So that was posted up this morning. His mom was on there too. So you get 2 views there. You get Evers, the player recruit angle, and then going through the whole process as a parent as well with his mom, Monica, on there. So.
And that is a great point that people should check out. You do see from time to time a lot of people are able to yank in the recruits and get their perspective. But obviously, to get that parent's perspective, because that's who the coach is selling as well. That's who they're recruiting to, as well as that parent. And just to get a good perspective on what they're looking at and what their concerns are is mighty interesting. So David Waters, Gators Breakdown. David, we always appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. And I will be taking calls tonight at 860-499-3332 as we march through our college football prep for 2021. I'm going to go through, if we don't get enough calls and comments on the live chat here, I wanted to take some time to go through the comments that come into the channel. I was kind of sparked by a comment by someone during the Florida State show. And I will mention to Danny, if you're still with us, Danny had asked, where's the Florida State show? We were on with our Florida State Seminoles live, as we always are, 6 o'clock Eastern on the Florida State channel. 6 o'clock Eastern on the Florida State channel. It is right there. Enjoy. It's an even longer version than usual. It's a good one with our guys Logan Robinson and Jason Parker talking Florida State. We are planning on a debate between Jason Parker and Cam Underwood from State of the U. 2001 Miami versus 2013 Florida State. Who would win that game? So all you Florida State fans and Miami fans, we were going to do a live stream. We're still working out the details, trying to schedule that between Jason, Cam. Maybe I'll weigh in at the end and say, this is my judgment on the game. 0-1 Miami, 13 Florida State. Jameis Winston, Sean Taylor, all sorts of great players that would have played, of course, in that one. All right, let me get our number to the screen right after I remind everyone to shop Amazon using the link in the description section. There we go on the ticker. There's your number, 860-499-3332. George is here. So is Coconut Kane. Eddie Sewell's here. It's a good night. Chris Mitchell. All sorts of folks. Gabriel, SEC fan. And there is no pride, no conference pride like SEC pride. I don't think that can be debated. For all the great debates we have in college football and college athletics, that's one that really can't be debated. I would think that the conference that's second in that category, but it's not even close, would be the Big Ten. I don't really see a lot of brotherhood in the Pac-12. I think there's some in the Big 12. I don't really see any in the ACC where people really care about the ACC. The Big Ten would be running a distant second to the SEC when it comes to conference pride. I can't prove that. I have nothing to substantiate that. That's just based on conversations and experience and watching this thing forever. We've got Gabriel with a question here. When is the next time you think a Pac-12 team will make the playoff? So making the playoff and actually winning games in the playoff are two completely different levels of football. So for the Pac-12 to actually make the playoff and win games, that could be quite a while. But for the Pac-12 to reach the playoff, they just have to have a season that is better. Their champion needs to have a season that is viewed slightly better than one of the other conference champions. So they are, unless somebody goes out there and dominates USC, Oregon, Washington, fill in the blank. The other conference that they're matched up against, if they've got the same record and a similar resume, the other conference champion is going to be given the benefit of the doubt. Is that fair? No, it's not fair that we are judging teams and therefore conferences based on past performance, but that's the reality of the situation. The committee will give any conference champion the benefit of the doubt with the same resume, a similar resume over a Pac-12 champion. So the Pac-12 is going to need a scenario in reverse than what they had going in 2019 when Oklahoma was the 4th seed. You had the 3 undefeated champions. Then you had Oklahoma at 12-1, and you had Oregon at 11-2. The Pac-12 needs the reverse of that. They need to be the 12-1 champion being compared to an 11-2 champion. They are going to have a decided. They can't be the 12-1 versus a 12-1 or an 11-2 against an 11-2 unless they have a monumental win in there out of conference, like Oregon against Ohio State. That could be an example right there where the Pac-12 would be given the benefit of the doubt. If Oregon, let's say, goes out, wins the Pac-12 championship, and let's say stumbles and loses one game. And let's say Oklahoma, with a bad non-conference schedule, goes out and loses one game. So at the end of the season, Oregon's 12-1 with a respectable loss. They lost to USC by a field goal, something like that. And Oklahoma's 12-1. They've got a loss. Let's say it's a bad loss like they've had the last 2 years against Kansas State. But Oregon won in Columbus. And let's say Ohio State goes on and does what they typically do. They're 12-1. They won the Big Ten. That most likely, in all fairness, if the committee's doing its job, they would select Oregon over Oklahoma in that situation. When do I think it's going to happen? I think it's going to happen within the next 3 to 4 years if we stay with the 14 playoff. Lewis is driving hard with the maize and blue tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with David Waters. He's always excellent. And we've got some Kentucky talk coming up. And as is always the case, when I've got the idea of going through the comments on the videos that have already posted, the video comments that are already on the channel, you guys have too much to say for me to even dive into that. I'm going to have to cut a couple videos reacting to viewer comments. Also have to make sure I'm not missing any phone calls because sure as heck I am. So let's get right to it. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Hello, welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? We're having a bit of a holdup here. You know when you click on something on your laptop and it just cycles forever? That's what's going on right now. I have answered this phone call and it is just cycling. It's just cycling over and over and over and over. Hopefully it's going to come through for me. Please do. I apologize to whomever's waiting because I have clicked your call. But let me see if I can take another call. Let's try another one.
Hello?
Unfortunately, I think there we go. Hello, who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hunter, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. What's going on?
Good. I got two questions for you. Number one, where do you see Nebraska at this coming up season? They're one of the schools that are one of the historic programs that I would like to be good again. So what is your assessment of Scott Frost and what he's doing in Lincoln?
I think if you look at everything but the win-loss record, it seems like Scott Frost is doing a pretty decent job. He's recruiting in the top 20 in the nation. He's acquiring talent. He had to weed out some issues there at Nebraska, which he's done, and certainly he's been given a lot of rope as a favored son. He's had 3 pretty awful seasons, so this is his 4th season. They've got a veteran quarterback in Adrian Martinez who's not going to carve up defenses. He's a runaround guy that's going to throw short to intermediate passes and complete about 70% of his passes. I think 3 alarming stats out of this Nebraska football team from last year. Number one, they had the 3rd worst turnover rate in college football, their offense. Their defense had a bottom 15 turnover rate. So you've got an offense that's turning the ball over constantly, and you've got a defense that doesn't create turnovers. And then number 3, on top of that, Hunter, they had only 4 pass completions over 30 yards. That was the 2nd worst rate in the nation last year. So no explosive plays in the passing game, turn the football over, and don't get turnovers on defense. It's a wonder they went 3-5 last year, and most of those losses, 3 out of 5, were 1-score games. That all being said, there's not a team in the division that is like Alabama, Texas A&M, Clemson, Ohio State. There's not a juggernaut, like loaded talent 4- and 5-star team everybody has similar talent. Like Wisconsin and Iowa aren't multi-talented teams in comparison to Nebraska. From a talent standpoint, they should be in the running for a division championship. But we just have yet to see them actually execute like that on the field. And they've got 10 of 11 starters on defense back. And the one spot that's missing on defense, Hunter, they got a 5-star cornerback transfer from Ohio State, Tyreek Johnson. So they should be able to kind of break through.
Yeah, I got them winning 9 games.
You might want to look at their schedule.
Let
Oklahoma,
me look at their schedule.
Ohio State.
Honestly, I haven't looked.
They've got 2 right out of the gate. So, all right, Hunter, we appreciate the call. I'm going to move on to our guest. You know that you can always call in.
All right, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, sir. All right, let's talk some Kentucky football. We've got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I am
Because
doing
when
great.
you're talking, when you're talking juggernauts, you have to start with Kentucky football, right? So
That was the perfect transition. If anybody can set up a transition, it's me. So Juggernaut came out of my mouth, and I went right into Kentucky football.
yeah, well, maybe it might be the basketball season, the way they're lining up right now. But Kentucky, you and I have talked. Kentucky, really, really excited about this season. So I can't wait for September 4th to get here, and most of the BBN likewise.
Now, Kevin, the way the football season is set up now, the off season, because of the pandemic, obviously recruiting has been pushed way back, and now we had this rush of visitation weekends for all these athletes coming to campus during the month of June. And I think that's going to produce, it already has to a certain extent, a lot of commitments, but we're going to see even more here in the next few weeks as these student athletes get a chance to let things soak in and make their decisions. On top of that, we've got this transfer portal. I have gotten into the habit, Kevin, of every morning checking the transfer portal because I want to be on top of all this stuff. And it has slowed down, obviously, because kids need to be in play for the 2021 season. But there have been a couple recent transfers with Kentucky. So if you can catch us up to date there.
Right. The first one, Jaquez Jones, a linebacker from who previously played at Ole Miss, since you and I last talked, recently committed to Kentucky, and it's a huge pickup for them because it's a position of need for the Cats this year. They lost Jamin Davis, who went, I think, 17th, 19th in the draft to Washington, and they lost Boogie Watson, and then they got 2 other guys suffering. Derek Jackson's out for the season for injury, and J.J. Weaver is recovering from a torn ACL. So it's a guy he's a player who can come in almost immediately once he learns the system and maybe start from day one. His last game with the Rebels was the Gator Bowl. I think he had 14 tackles or something like that in the Gator Bowl, and he was, I think, second leading tackler last year and leading tackler the year before. So it's a huge pickup for Kentucky, as I said, at the position of need. And then another guy that's being talked about is a guy by the name of Dare Rosenthal from LSU. He kind of surprisingly put his name in the portal about a week and a half ago, and Kentucky has been really right there with him. Kentucky and Baylor, I think, are two of the picks, possible landing spots. There was a couple of unconfirmed rumors that he'd already been on UK's campus. He's an offensive lineman, 6'7", like 325, something like that. Just has the kind of size obviously you can't teach. And he was a 4-star player coming out of high school and played some at LSU, but also had some how should we put this? I guess some off the field problems. Had some couple suspensions, couple other little things for some off the field stuff. He's the kind of guy that if Kentucky were to land him, he could fit right in, with that big blue wall that we've got, that the late John Schlarman started building, at Kentucky. So, those are two guys just right off. Like I said, Jones is going to be a big time, I think a big time player for Kentucky. And then we'll see what happens with Rosenthal.
The Rod Farva is an Ohio State fan who joins us for most of our live streams, and he had to do a double take on Ron English. Yes, Ron English, the Michigan football player, now on the Kentucky side.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of, it's another one. Like I said, a kind of interesting thing that came up there, and like I said, things happen quickly these days, as you say. So it's the transfer. Like I said, isn't there like a Twitter page or something for the transfer portal, or like a website or something?
Oh, absolutely.
Like I remember.
Yeah, there's a Twitter 247 transfer portal. I just go
right. Yeah.
This is a couple good ones that you get in conference here. As you mentioned, Rosenthal, top 300 player coming out of high school, 4-star. As you mentioned, top 25 offensive tackle. And then with Jones at linebacker, my goodness, the last 2 years, he has cleaned up 71 and 75 tackles, gets into the backfield, 7.5 tackles for loss 2 years ago. So a really good player there in a position of need for Kentucky. So nice additions there.
Yeah.
Quarterback. So we are, let's see, Kevin, it's the 7th of July. We are less than a month. We're more like 3 weeks away from these guys getting on the field to start to compete once again for these positions. Yep. And quarterback is going to be center stage for Kentucky and Kentucky analysts and beat writers to break down as we head through August.
Yeah.
How do you see this thing playing out?
Well, the interesting thing is, I think of course, as you said, they're kind of in that off time right now before they come back at the end of July, when they're getting ready for the season. I believe if the season started today, Will Levis is your quarterback. There was some words that, leaked out from a couple of news sites about 3 weeks ago saying that they had heard that, I haven't heard anything to dispute it. So that Levis right now is is probably going to be the guy with Joey Gatewood as the backup, and then Bo Allen right there behind him. So in a way, it makes sense because new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, one of his things, he was high on Levis, instrumental in getting him to transfer from Penn State here to Kentucky. So I mean, it makes sense that he might be your guy starting the starting the season. Like I said, obviously he's got to come in. You've got that month of training camp. Got to learn the system and all that. But like I said, right now he appears to be the leader in the clubhouse. And instead, I'll be excited. Kentucky. As you and I have talked before, nobody got to see spring practice. They didn't have a spring game per se. There was a controlled scrimmage where they let some boosters and I think some high paying ticket holders watch, but we haven't seen them play. All we see is like the highlights that they would send to the media and just what the coaches would say afterwards. So no one, if you watch for those who don't remember, Liam Cohen was the quarterback's coach and with the offense with the LA Rams. So if you watch their offense, that I like that comment. You watch their offense, you're going to see kind of what we're going to see here at Kentucky, and it's going to be a totally different thing from run left, run right, run up the middle, throw occasionally. I mean, they're still going to run the ball because you got Chris Rodriguez, who I think could lead the SEC in rushing, but we'll see. But they're going to have that more wide open, I think, a pro style offense. You think about Wan'Dale Robinson transferring in from Nebraska, Josh Ali coming back for a sixth year or an extra year. So, like I said, Levis appears to be the guy. Now, we'll see what happens in the next month because for anyone who follows Kentucky football, we've learned over the last couple of years you can never have too many quarterbacks. So, like I said, Levis right now, if the season started today, when they play Louisiana Monroe on September 4th, I think Levis is going to be the guy. Now I'll say that, and then something, and then they'll throw somebody else out there just to mess with me. But anyway,
it's just me, Tim79, telling me that we've got too many channels here. I don't know how you can have too many college football channels. We're pumping out tons of content, and I don't have a Kentucky channel yet. So until we have a Kentucky channel, we don't have too many channels.
Yeah, well, it's part of being the voice of college football. I mean, that's your thing. So you should have as many channels as you like, and you even have this certificate or something. I think, wasn't it, that states that you're the voice of college football. So,
I will need to display that at some point. We got the certificate in from the U.S. Trademark Department. Yes, the voice of college football. So, Kevin, you won't be surprised, but you should be proud of me that I cut a video a couple of weeks ago. I was looking at over-under totals, and I was completely stunned. That would be a bit of an overstatement. I was surprised that Vegas had Kentucky at 6.5, and I said, take that over. I looked at the schedule. My goodness, the 3 wins non-conference, and then we'll say Louisville's most likely a win, probably in that 70 to 80% range. Right. So Kentucky should go 4-0 out of conference, and for them to be at 6.5, according to Vegas.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I said the same thing. I'm not technically, I'm not a big betting person, but I would jump all over that. And I think even, ESPN with their FPI or whatever it is they call it, I think they were right around 7 wins, 6.5 to 7 wins too. But I'm looking, I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, okay, who are they going to, maybe we're feeling a little too proud of ourselves or a little too confident. But yeah, like I said, Louisiana Monroe, New Mexico State, I can't remember the other team now, Louisville, and then they play, I think it's Tennessee, one of the OVC schools. And then, like I said, in the games they should win, they, should beat Missouri, should beat South Carolina, should beat Vandy. That's 7 wins right there. Now, Missouri, I will say this, Missouri might be one of the biggest, one of the biggest games of the season, honestly, and it's in week 2. But, and then you get into, Tennessee and, Kentucky honestly should beat Tennessee this year, but we've seen that before. If Kentucky beats Tennessee this year, it'll be the first time back-to-back win since 1976 and 77. So that's a streak that really needs to end. So, but I think for me, 8 wins. I think 8 wins is a starting point. Honestly, I would say. Not a big stretch here, but I'm going to say anything less than 8 wins would be considered a disappointing season this year. And when in the world would you have ever thought that, you and I have been talking Kentucky football for about 5 years now. And when would you thought that would have ever, say that, 8 wins could, winning 7 games might be kind of a disappointment. So.
And I'm sorry, in addition to Mississippi State in the SEC West, who's the other game against?
LSU.
LSU.
They have LSU. It's LSU at home, and then they go they go to Georgia, go to Mississippi State. Now, see that's one of those games that I think is a toss up. Kentucky hasn't played well against Mississippi State down there, especially recently, and after Kentucky, pretty much honestly kind of embarrassed them last year. I would expect Mike Leach to throw everything in the world at them this year. So I think that's I think not necessarily a trap game, but I definitely think that one's a 50-50 contest. So
yeah, I think LSU and Georgia are going to be the 2 games most likely. Things change during the season, but the way it looks right now, where Kentucky's going to be a substantial underdog, but they do have LSU at home. Right. Okay.
And I think the last time, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2000. The last time Kentucky played LSU at home was 2007, and that's when they beat a game I was at. I can say, of course, everybody says they were at the game, I'm sure now, but where they knocked off the #1 Tigers in triple overtime. Honestly, probably one of the best college football games I've ever seen. just an unbelievable game, that day. And I'm pretty sure that's the last time, 99% sure it's the last time Kentucky hosted LSU, because, with the SEC schedule now, you only play, you have the one team you play every week or every year, and then the other six, teams rotate out. So, it's basically like once every six, you would play somebody once every 6 years. So, last year's schedule, of course, with the pandemic kind of changed things, but yeah, LSU is the other SEC West team this year.
The last two times LSU visited Lexington, it was crazy. You hit that 07 game, and then the one before that was the crazy deflected pass and the Gatorade shower.
Yeah, I was at that game too. A whole lot different feelings after that one. And how many times have we seen that played on, on football, highlight shows, because like I said, Kentucky had won, thought we had the game won, and, all you got to do, what do they teach you? Do not let anybody behind you, and just, knock the ball down. Don't try to go for an interception. And you go back and watch that play. The receiver got behind him, and I can't remember the quarterback's name now for LSU, but through it might have been Jamarcus Russell, I think. Through the perfect
was.
I can't remember, through the perfect pass, and and it was, Kentucky. Unfortunately, Kentucky football, that's what we've we see a lot less of it now. But you could you could make a list of all the agonizing losses in Kentucky football history. Unfortunately, I've been at many of them, so I don't know if I was the jinx or if
What was that? I'm guessing 2004.
I think it was 2002. I could look it up. I want to say 2002 was that game.
I looked up 04. Okay, here it is. Yes, you're correct. 02. The touchdown pass. Ooh, Kentucky led 34-4. No, LSU was up 34-14. And no, 24-14. Anyway, where's this? Okay, this is kind of confusing because I remember this quarterback as well has a very close name to Jamarcus Russell, Marcus Randall.
That's who I'm thinking. You're right. That's it. Yeah.
To Michael Clayton, who had a nice career in the NFL. Yep. That was a crazy play.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Like I said, that's your Kentucky. What's your Kentucky? Football. Like I said, what we like to say, we like to call it the old Kentucky football now. So, but yeah, like I said, I
was just going to say one other capper on this one, Kevin, is for as much as these coaches hate to get doused with Gatorade, the worst thing in the world would be getting doused with the Gatorade and losing the game. So you're pissed off about losing the game,
yes.
And you're drenched in sticky Gatorade as well.
Yes, yeah, that was Guy Morris. Guy Morris was still here at that time, and got the unfortunate, as you said, the double whammy of the Gatorade bath and the and losing the game in one of the most, like I said, incredible finishes ever. Like I said, it's played for a reason, but that's, like I said, Kentucky got the revenge the next time. So I like that. UK should win 8. Rod Favre, I agree with you. I mean, I'm still thinking, I haven't done my predictions blog yet, or my, for last word, but I said, I'm really thinking 9 wins. Like I said, 9-3 and, another New Year's bowl game. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, there's a lot of, like I said, the website is going to be, throw the plug in here, last word on collegefootball.com. Between now and September, that first week, there's going to be, all kinds of content from all our different writers. And it's, definitely, if you're a college football fan, I can't encourage you enough to check it out. I mean, there's a lot of great people, as you will know, like Tony and Jason, that are friends of this site. I know, watched the thing with Terry Donahue, you talking about Terry Donahue the other night and his legacy. And, like I said, I think it's going to be a big, this is, don't want to, get too excited, but this might be the most excitement around this program that I can remember. Maybe since even like the Tim Couch days, which was the late 90s when Hal Mumme came and, threw in the, ushered in the air raid offense. I'm sure there's been more exciting, seasons. There's been more exciting seasons. Obviously, the 10-win season a couple of years ago, but nobody was really expecting Kentucky to win 10 games this year, except maybe you. I don't know. I can't remember what you picked at that time, but yeah, it's just going to be, like I said, it's going to be fun, and obviously with the restrictions, the attendance restrictions are off, and so they're expecting a full house at Kroger Field for that Missouri game, which is the first SEC home game, and they'll need that crowd, I think, to win that game, because I think that's an important game.
Yeah, the excitement that surrounded those Kentucky teams of 1998-99 wasn't so much about winning. It was about they were just so incredibly awful before that, number one. Number two, it was about the style of offense and the excitement of scoring so many points, throwing the football all over the place. And, of course, the wins followed, but we're not talking about anything close to as good as that team was a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about 7-5 kind of football teams.
Right. Yeah, and we were excited, and you think about that first team, the first team with Mummy went 5-6, I believe. And then it was the next year, went to the Outback Bowl. I was lucky enough to go to that game. We, the TV station I worked for at the time we did an entire week's worth of coverage, for that. Yes, you are correct. UK will beat Tennessee. And, it was one of the most fun experiences of my life, but now as a 50-year-old, there's no way I could do that. I don't think I could do that anymore. But, and then unfortunately, the Mummy, it all kind of fell apart with, UCL with, NCAA violations. But yeah, like I said, you throw in Rodriguez, much improved at the wide receiver position, strong offensive line. So I think it's going to be a big, I think we're in for a big season, and I hope that it turns out to be correct. So
I saw that Mummy Couch team play once in person that year. They came to Mississippi State, and I remember Mississippi State, actually, that was 1999. Mississippi State was undefeated at the time, like 7-0, ranked in the top 10, and we did a big pregame show, and it was a Thursday night, I believe. It would have had to have been for us to take the news out there. We did a big pregame show and post-game show, and Mississippi State barely beat Kentucky. It was a great game. And
yeah, I remember that. Remember that games. And Rod Farva, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good assessment. The Hail Mary was about the Christian, Christian Leitner shot, because you can't go through a March Madness without seeing that dang shot. Now I know we've had a couple of, the one from Villanova a couple years ago. That's kind of maybe taken over, but you're still always going to see that. Kentucky fans, one of the most popular T-shirts you see is, I think it was Throw Boy Tees, which was, Jared Lorenzen, the late Jared Lorenzen company, says, "I still hate Leitner." And you still see, you see Kentucky fans wearing that, all the time, during basketball season. So, but yeah, like I said, we, a fantasy football channel. Okay. I could get into that. I'm in 12 fantasy football leagues. So maybe not quite that many, but anyway, sorry. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I don't really think I could take off on that. That would just be a little bit too much to take on, but maybe a college football history channel, I could get into that.
That'd be good.
All right. Anything else, Kevin?
Yeah, not really. I just want to get another plug in for Last Word. I've got an article that's coming out tomorrow morning, basically where I break down, in my opinion, what I think are the five biggest games on UK's schedule for 2021. And Missouri, like I said, I think the Missouri game is probably the most important, because I think if Kentucky wins that game, then they have a legitimate chance of going 5-0. And then you get that Florida, 3 weeks, 3 weeks in a row, then you get the Florida, LSU, and Georgia all right there together. So that, Kentucky should start off strong, maybe have a dip in the middle, and should finish strong. So, and then another one I have was just goals for the upcoming season. And The two biggest ones are the six straight bowl game. Kentucky's never been to six straight bowl games. They've been to five twice now. And again, if Kentucky didn't make a bowl game, it would be, I think, like the biggest disappointment in football this year. And then another one would be try to win a fourth straight game. Kentucky's never won four straight bowl games. So they won three under Rich Brooks back 2007 through 2009. And then, then they won two under Bear Bryant. And then 25 years later, won one under Fran Kersey. But they've never won four in a row. So that's two big things. Two big things that UK fans should be, hopefully be rewarded with, a bowl game, and then hopefully another bowl win at the end of the season this year. So, but we'll see. We got a long way to get there. But as I said, it's really, the season is really coming up quick, and I can't wait for it.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. Join him and the rest of the crew over there on Last Word on College Football. Kevin, appreciate you stopping by.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. As always, I really appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you again soon as we get closer to the season.
All right, our man Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. And again, as Kevin outlined, a lot of great content over there. We had Tony Siracusa here just the other night. He was the first person I thought of to really run through the passing of Terry Donahue, one of the great all-time coaches, the winningest coach in Pac-12 history. So let's get back to the call-in lines. So I appreciate everybody's patience. We got a call coming in here. I believe this is going to be about NIL. Hello. Who's on the line? Again, we're cycling everything as I'm taking these calls. The site is just cycling, unfortunately. So as soon as the call picks up, we will be talking to somebody about NIL. Unfortunately, I apologize to whomever's on the line because I've taken your call and it's just not picking it up. I may have to hang you up and have you call back. The Rod Farva believes that college basketball was bigger than football in the 90s. I can see where you would make that comment. I think it's a decent debate. I don't think it's true. But I think it's a legit conversation. All right, let's see if we can take this other call.
Hi.
Hello, it's the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
David Knight.
Hey, David. How are you?
I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm good. What you been up to?
No good.
Oh, boy.
No, just kidding about that. Hey, I wanted to ask you about something. I know you're not an ardent recruiting person, but what I've noticed is Ohio State has recruited a large class, which they typically do, and they've got their 5 stars. And also, I've noticed, like in the past, that Alabama and Clemson typically kind of hang around towards the end of the recruiting cycle, and then all of a sudden they start picking up a ton of players, and they all come zooming up the recruiting rankings. Because I know a lot of the high-profile players want to have that dramatic presentation where they sit at the table with their parents and pick out a hat out of the 4 or 5 that are on the table, blah, blah, blah. Why do you think, or what do you atone that to, that Ohio State's able to manage to bring in the 5 stars, those high-profile players early versus these other 2 teams who pick them up later or right there at the very end of the recruiting cycle? That was my question.
It's a great question. I've wondered the same thing myself. It's a trend that was in play during Urban Meyer's day. I can't go back as far as Jim Tressel to remember the nature of the recruiting process and the approach then from that perspective. But there's no question that Urban Meyer, there was no suspense. There was no drama. There was nobody on the fence concerning Ohio State. We hit signing day. You knew exactly where they stood. And sometimes that meant having the #1 recruiting class in the nation going into National Signing Day and then dropping 2 spots because they just stood pat. They weren't in play for anybody else. They had their class, and maybe Alabama, LSU, somebody jumped ahead of them in the process. But still, hey, you got the 2nd or 3rd rated class in the nation. Nobody's crying about that. To where the drama always surrounded the schools that you're talking about. Georgia seems to be in play for a ton of players on National Signing Day. Alabama seems to steal a couple guys that vault them up at the 12th hour. I don't really know, and I've never heard anybody comment on why that's the case. You would think that you would think that they're basically recruiting the same players, pretty much. There's an overlap.
Yeah.
There's a huge overlap of the pool of players that those schools that we're talking about are recruiting. So why would Ohio State not be in play for those couple guys that wait until the last minute? I don't have an answer for you. I do know that whatever Urban Meyer, whatever the approach that led to that, having that signed, sealed, and delivered class going into National Signing Day, Ryan Day has fallen right in step with that. And it's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't provide a whole lot of drama on National Signing Day if you're an Ohio State fan. But I don't have an answer for you.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Well, David, I apologize. I'll cut you off just briefly because I've even brought that up to our Ohio State guys on the Buckeye show several times. They don't really, I don't recollect them really having an answer either. Or maybe they weren't as aware as what's going on with some of the SEC teams still being in the running for all these players on the day of National Signing Day.
Do you think it's an approach that, hey, man, you want to be on the team or you don't? And I don't have time for you to play games with your hat selection on, January, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or February 1st. I've forgotten the exact dates, but I think sometimes, like in Ohio State scenario, they may say, hey, you have a slim window of opportunity. If you ever were really considering playing here, you need to make up your mind because we're not going to wait till the end of the recruiting cycle and then you decide to say, well, I like Oregon a little bit better than you. I like Georgia a little bit better. No, we're not playing that game. But I think being firm like that can pay dividends.
I have to say that even though I, as an Ohio State fan, have been more than satisfied with these recruiting classes, there's a slight part of me that has been thinking on those National Signing Days, why has Ohio State got everything wrapped up? Why are they not in the running for this 5-star and that 5-star and all these guys running around? There's usually a handful of just premium players on the final day that are still undecided, and it seems to be locked in on the SEC that those particular players are looking at Georgia, Alabama, LSU, some combination of them, and maybe 1 or 2 other schools. Whatever they're doing's working. But you may be right. They might be extremely firm about wanting to say, hey, we want to know where we stand, and we don't want to be messing around with 1 or 2 or 3 of our final scholarships on the final day. We want to know what we have, and if you're not committed to us, we'll move on to the next guy.
I'd like to think that's it. I mean, I'm not there, Mark, so I cannot say. But at some point in time, I got the kids are, each generation that we go from one to the other, they change slightly, but they like being catered to. I do know that. And the other thing I would say is that just what you said is like, man, you guys decide right now you want to be part of the team or not. Because if you don't, I'm going to go on to somebody else. And he may be a high 4-star, you may be a low 5-star, and in the end, the play on the field dictates how good you actually are anyway. So I'm not going to sweat it losing you.
Yeah, those other schools might be more comfortable with waiting till the end, and because they are competing directly with those teams that we're talking about inside the SEC, they just figure this is life in this conference and this is how we deal with it. Whereas Ohio State, again, they feel as though, okay, if we haven't sold this kid by now, we've had a relationship with him for 2 years. We keep in close communication with him. He has visited campus probably, aside from the pandemic year, most of the time it's been 2 or 3 times. He's been on campus. We maintain close communication. He knows everything we have to offer. If he's not sold on that we're the choice for him, we're okay with that. And we'll move on to plan B. But we want to know what we have so we can move on. We don't want to lose this spot the final day, lose this individual, and we never went and got plan B.
Yeah, that's a tough road to hoe. I did read an article about Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer said that recruiting was 365 days out of the year. Even on Christmas, he was recruiting guys, sending text messages. So, I don't know, that's nuts to me.
It's nuts, but that's how he felt it needed to go.
That is the game.
And the man's got, regardless of what you think of him, the highest winning percentage in the history of college football. Modern college football.
Yeah, I mean, he threw his whole effort at it, and I would just think, man, that takes a toll on you as a coach. But, it is what it is. He dedicated himself to success, and he was extremely successful. So, can't say anything bad about him. That was my question, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I will say one last note along those same lines. I know that he made a statement when he took the Ohio State job that when he was at Florida and winning 2 national championships, imagine this, you put all that time, all that effort, blood, sweat, and tears into that, and you win it. You're the only team that wins a national championship. You accomplished all that. And he admitted he couldn't enjoy it, that he would be in the locker room with the rest of the team, the rest of the coaches going crazy, just hugging each other and going crazy. And he said 10 minutes after that game was over, he was in his office with all that shouting and craziness going on and celebration just outside of his office. And he's calling and texting recruits, working on the next recruiting class.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, I just, I think it's like that in a lot of companies too. Like, I'm not talking about football now, but, when you achieve something, everybody gives you a pat on the back, and then they're saying, okay, what are you going to do next? Like, well, can I enjoy this for a moment? Anyway, that was all I had. So thank you for letting me call in, and you take care of yourself. And let somebody else jump in.
You know what, David? While I've got you on the line, I don't know that I can pull this off because I'm tied down by this earpiece, but I'm gonna attempt it. This could be comical. We could see equipment and laptops flying all over the place here very soon within the next few seconds. But I would love to do this while you're on the line. We pulled it off here. So while David's on the line, and this is what David is responsible for. This is just one of many things that I can thank David for, is that he ordered this baby. There it is. I'm holding it in front of my face, so I can't see where it is on the screen, but hopefully everybody can see it right there. David, I sent him various versions of the logo, and he put this together for us. And therefore, we would like to know who has interest in a Voice of College Football sweatshirt, T-shirt, whatever your preference is, and then we can get an idea of what we need to do in regards to ordering. But David has been kind enough to do the legwork on this baby right here. So thank you for that, sir.
Yeah, Mark. Hi, you're very welcome. Bought myself one. It's very nice. Once you get the initial logo down, because they charge you a little bit of money for the creating initial logo after you send them the file, and then we take it from there, man. We can get everybody one, but I think the more you order, obviously, the lower the price goes.
There you go. Okay.
So,
I am happy that you called, and that reminded me to get off my rear end and actually display that. I've had that in my hands for at least a week, and David was so kind enough to, again, do all the legwork behind that and actually pay for it as well and take that off my plate.
I think the next thing we need to talk about is, and not right now on the show, I'm going to get off here. I'm sure people are tired of hearing my voice, but is the approach to pulling in sponsors. Like, what is that pitch? What is that pitch that they want to hear, and who are the companies that we target? That was what I wanted to talk to you about the other day.
I love how you think, David. I've had those thoughts. There's just so many things involved in this, and I'm not complaining because I'm a very blessed individual. So I don't want anyone to take this as complaining. But if you could imagine how many things I've got written on lists of to-do lists, and just between Facebook and Instagram, and I'm in the process of another project that I'm not going to say, but I'm going to unveil here in the next 3 or 4 months. And I've bought all this camera equipment that I need to install and work with and get it hooked up to the live stream and do it right. And I'm also much involved in and when we talk on the phone, David, of building something out for this fall that I hope people will get excited about, because it's going to really beef up the content that we have on these specific team channels. So I've been working on that as well. So there's just 52 things I'm going in different directions and need to focus and push through on a number of them. And what you bring up right there is one of them. But I am not a salesperson, but I'm going to have to be in the business of being a salesperson.
Yeah, I got it. It's tough to juggle all the balls in the air
and put together content for 22 channels at the same time. So you got to balance.
I know.
Balance the day-to-day with the long-term vision. Yes, absolutely. So David, you let me know when you can get together and talk, and we will.
Okay, that'll work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for letting me on the show. So
absolutely.
Take care of yourself, Mark, and God bless.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. Before I move on to the next call, I saw a number of people there. We had Mr. Rupp, we had Cheryl, we had Sue comment and say some nice things about the logo design and the shirt. So yes, we will make those available, and I'll have more to say about that. Also, keep in mind, I have not forgotten about all the people that signed up on the website, and there is a $25 gift card giveaway that I'm in the process. I just want to make sure that I actually have the gift card. So anytime you work with multiple people and you kind of count on them to get back to you, it sometimes delays the process considerably. So I appreciate everybody's commenting that they like the shirt, and we will move in that direction. Cheryl, you know that you've got a special place here, certainly as our main and many times, most of the time, only moderator. All right, let's move on to the next one. I think I got DeAndre on the line. Let's see what year he takes us back to tonight. DeAndre, how you doing? Hello, DeAndre.
Hello, DeAndre.
I'm hearing myself now.
Hearing myself now.
Okay, I guess we'll need to drop that.
Okay, we'll need to drop that.
Does everybody else hear that? I don't know what's going on tonight. The first problem we're having is where I click, there's a button that just says to activate. It's in green to activate the call. And this has never happened before. Through all these call-in shows, has never happened where I click on it and it just cycles forever and it never picks up the call. And that's what it's doing tonight. So for the people that I've dropped your call, my apologies. I didn't know what to do because it was cycling forever. So we will move on to our next call, which I believe is Mr. David Greenshield. How are we doing tonight?
The voice of college football, Mr. Mark Rogers. How are you?
I'm good, David. How's it going?
Well, I was very impressed by that shirt. I'd like to know what to go and purchase it. Do you have that both in short sleeve and long sleeve?
Well, as it stands right now, we just wanted to purchase one shirt and see how it looks and display it for everyone, and then say, okay, what do we do from here? Do we looked at it against like a gray background. So the logo's obviously got gray, red, and black. So it would make sense to put it against white, black, red, silver shirts. So we just wanted to get one out there and say, hey, is anybody interested? And then go from there. But I would like to be able to make, at least both of those available, long sleeve and short sleeve, maybe some kind of sweatshirt, and against a number of different colors.
Yeah, that'd be just with the summertime. It'd be nice to get short sleeve. As far as that goes, you think you might make that available on the site, Mark? Or I'd love to purchase one. That's what I was asking.
Nice. Yes, I just again wanted to display it and see what the interest is, and then go from there. And I will put something out there that will gauge what the interest is, and go from there.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll be on the lookout for that. I wanted to ask you, Mark, you had an interesting guest on as far as the one guy that had gone to just a number of different college football stadiums. I forget the guest's name. I'm sorry. It's escaping me.
Yes, sir. He was on a few weeks ago. We recorded it. I just released it the other day. And I'm sorry, David. I don't even remember his name. I'm sorry. I talked to too many people. I apologize for that. But he was tremendous. We followed each other on Twitter. I could look it up here. I could find him.
Okay.
And I will do that over the course of the conversation. But he was an interesting guy to run into.
Well, yeah, it led me to a question that I always, probably would ask you. Obviously, you've covered the sport and covered it for years now. Mark, I don't know if you could ballpark it, but how many college football stadiums do you think you've been to? Bottom line.
Well, actually, I haven't been to that many. His name is, goodness. Anyway, I'm not coming up with it. Really, I just got around the SEC a little bit when I was down there, and because of my responsibilities, I didn't even go on the road much. We would just take feeds And so basically, Tuscaloosa, Starkville, Oxford, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama. I've been to the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Ohio Stadium, of course.
Yeah.
Been to the Georgia Dome, if you want to count that, and NFL Stadium, but for college bowl games and for SEC championship games.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. Have you been to a lot of other Big Ten stadiums? I know you've been to probably most of the MAC stadiums, right, Mark?
You know, David, actually, no on both accounts. Yep. I have never visited another Big Ten stadium. I have never gone to another MAC stadium other than the two close by, Akron, Kent.
Okay. Interesting. I thought maybe you'd been to Toledo or Bowling Green or a few of the other ones throughout the MAC. I was, so no other Big Ten stadium other than Ohio State. Okay. I thought maybe you did.
I just had no.
Okay.
I don't want to say opportunity. I could always just buy tickets and go, but that just never. That never really interested me. Like if somebody said,
yeah, well,
go watch the Penn State Michigan game in Happy Valley. Yeah, that'd be a great experience, but it just, I don't have that much interest in going through the trouble to do it.
See, one of the things, and this is why I love college game day, it's really interesting, is kind of seeing the pregame atmosphere at these stadiums just is always really neat and fun to me, and to a lot of other people, I'm sure. Especially, the tailgating and all of that, especially before the game starts. To me, that would be the most interesting thing to be a part of at a lot of these stadiums.
Yeah, it would be. Again, every time I've been to a college football stadium outside of Ohio Stadium, it's been working. So I've not taken part in that kind of stuff. It's been show up and either stand on the sideline or stand in the press box and cover the game and go to the locker room after the game and the news conference and all of that. The only place I've been a fan is Ohio Stadium.
Okay. Now, this kind of led me to, go ahead. I'm sorry. You going to say something, Mark?
No, please don't apologize. I tend to think of these things, especially when I'm on the phone with you a split second after I go on with it. But I even remember people would be shocked if they take this in. That in 1992, which turned out to be, as you well know, the tie game between Ohio State and Michigan.
Yep.
The day before the game, somebody offered me tickets to go to Columbus and go to the game. And it was only an hour and a half drive. It wasn't a big deal. I said, no, rather watch it at home.
Oh, interesting.
They said, you've never been to an Ohio State, Michigan. Well, I think they assumed, they said, you've been to Ohio State, Michigan games. I said, no, never been to one. They said, I'm giving you 2 tickets. No, I got no interest in being smashed up against 80 people trying to watch a football. Like, I'd rather be on my couch where I can see replay after replay after replay. I can see stats and analysis. Like, I hate going to games and I like to understand what's going on in the game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, although I will say college football, I would definitely say that more about the NFL, where, one of the greatest things about football is it's built for television better than any sport out there, which is obviously one of the biggest, if not the biggest part of its popularity, aside from maybe the gambling aspect, of course.
Yep.
But, I would also say, college, though, I think, with, as I mentioned, the pregame atmosphere, kind of the stadiums, I think would be an interesting thing to just be a part of it, more so, obviously, than the NFL. You also brought up something that leads me to a question mark. See, I've been to the Ohio State-Michigan game, so I've been to, obviously, what I feel is the greatest rivalry, although some would say, is it really a rivalry? But that a lot of people leave that up to debate, especially as things have turned, over the years here. But that made me think of the 3 rivalry games that I would want to go see. And I just want to get your thoughts. Maybe you've already commented on this. I would love to go to Oklahoma, Texas. Red River would be really interesting, especially at the fair down there. That would be really interesting. Alabama Auburn, I definitely would like to go to the Iron Bowl. And then I almost had a chance years ago to go to the one that I think I really want to go to, which is Army Navy.
Mm.
Of the three, Mark, have you been to any of those three?
Again, it might be surprising. I had a number of opportunities to go to Alabama Auburn, and I never went.
Okay.
I always stayed at the station and hosted the shows from the station, and the other sports guy went to Alabama Auburn every year. So I was there for 7 years. I could have went to 7 Auburn, Alabama games. I didn't go to any.
Okay.
I would go to the Egg Bowl. It was convenient. It was right down the road. I would go to that. But those three that you mentioned, if I had my chance to go to any of the three, and this has crossed my mind. Oh my goodness, you're taking me down memory lane, and one of these memories is very recent because, as many people that are watching know, I worked at ESPN for 19 years, and I was a production operations manager. So the last kind of section of time there at ESPN, the guy who was in charge of audio for College Game Day reported to me. And over the last couple of football seasons that I was there, and he actually asked me if I wanted to go to the Army Navy game because I would like to go, but for whatever reason I didn't go. And so I've blown that opportunity because I no longer work for the company. But he would go to all the national, of course, it's College Game Day. He would go to all the big games and all the big bowl games and national championship games. And those last couple of seasons, I was doing this and really focused on building this. And he said, why don't you come down to the national championship game? And I could go on the company, just go down to the national championship game, hang out and all that. No, that's okay.
Wow. See, I would think a national championship game would be something I would definitely. I had some friends of mine that went to the Ohio State-Oregon game, a few years ago, which was, in Dallas, which they had great, actually not great seats, but they weren't bad, and it was just incredible from what they said. Of course, they were with a lot of Ohio State fans. But yeah, I would have thought you covering the SEC. Now, so you were at the Egg Bowl then, Mississippi State, because I know you covered Mississippi State then, right, Mark?
Yeah, I pretty much went to, I don't want to say all of them, most of them when I was there.
Okay. I would have sworn you'd been to an Iron Bowl, though, considering you covering the SEC at that particular period of time. I thought you'd have gone to at least one.
No, I saw Alabama play Tennessee when they were good, and LSU and just about everybody else, but I did not go to any Iron Bowls. No, I didn't.
Interesting.
I went to 3 SEC championship games too. 3. And they all involved a national championship race. They all had national championship implications when I was there, which was fun.
What, 96, 97, 98, or right in those years, Mark?
94, Florida beat Alabama by 1 point. That Alabama team was 12-0. That's the Alabama team actually that beat Ohio State in the Citrus Bowl. They were undefeated.
I remember that
lost
game
to Florida by 1 point in the SEC championship game. The Florida team that beat Florida State in the rematch that denied Ohio State of a national championship in 96. I was at that Florida-Alabama SEC championship game. And then I was at the game rooting rather hard for Mississippi State, not because I covered them, but because if they had upset Tennessee, Ohio State would have been, of course, in the very first BCS championship game. And so I was at the 98 SEC championship game.
Yeah, that 98 day was a crazy day, Mark. Remember the 2 games earlier in the day when Edgerrin James ran all over UCLA and Cade McNown.
Sure.
And then that Kansas State team got upset by Texas A&M in the Big 12 title game. And then Tennessee, so all 3 undefeated almost go down on one day, which would have been really crazy. Because Mississippi State led that game in the fourth quarter, didn't they, Mark?
Absolutely. Like you, I got to see a lot of that game, the earlier games, I watched the Miami UCLA game, and I think I saw about half the Kansas State Texas A&M game before we had to go to the stadium, but it was on in the press box, and I gave Mississippi State. They weren't that good. That team went 8-5. They lost by 4 scores to not even really good Texas team in the Cotton Bowl. So they were a heavy underdog in that game, and I gave them no chance. But after all that happened that day, I thought, oh my goodness, if another miracle could happen here, this would be beautiful. And yes, they had a lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I remember they almost pulled it out. I was at a state championship game that day. Actually, I saw Mike Doss play his last game at Canton McKinley. They won the state championship that year before he went on to Ohio State in a great career and helped them win a national championship. So, I did want to make a comment. You were talking about Ohio State recruiting. I just want to chime in on this real quick. Just a couple of points. You had mentioned, you were talking a little bit about the difference between the Tressel recruiting and then the Meyer recruiting earlier, if I'm not mistaken, Mark. I heard a little bit of your conversation.
So somebody asked, why does Ohio State always have its recruiting class signed and sealed, locked and loaded going into National Signing Day, whereas you see this flurry of activity involving everybody else in the top 5 grabbing these high 4 stars and 5 stars on National Signing Day? Why is Ohio State never involved in that? And I could only conjecture. I've actually thrown that out to, I've noticed the same thing and thrown that out to Tony, Steve, and Kevin on the show. And then I basically just made the comment, well, Ryan Day is following in the footsteps of Urban Meyer, and I don't know if it's coincidence or he, in learning the same approach, we've seen no drama regarding the Ohio State class under Ryan Day's watch either. And then I just made the statement that I don't have recollection or don't remember the nature of Jim Tressel's final days of recruiting going into National Signing Day.
Well, I mean, I started to follow recruiting a little bit more during the Meyer era than I did the Tressel era. Although I will say this about the Tressel era, in following recruiting a little bit, I always thought the Tressel's recruiting started really strong and then ended really strong, but in the middle, it very much lagged. Because if you go back and look at it, probably his greatest recruiting class was that 02 recruiting class, which was the Maurice Clarett recruiting class. I think I may have mentioned it before. That was the class that had 4 first-round draft picks in it, and Antonio Holmes, Nick Mangold, A.J. Hawk, Bobby Carpenter, and actually had a throwing quarterback by the name of Troy Smith who would go on and win a Heisman. So basically, had a running back helped them win a national title, a quarterback that won a Heisman, and 4 first-round draft picks. That's not all bad. So, I mean, that was a pretty good way to start. And that class carried him for about, a few years there. In fact, I always thought the first 2 players he built his offense around were pretty much Troy Smith and Maurice Clarett, if you really think about it. Right, Mark?
That's a good assessment. That is a good assessment. Maurice Clarett, just to see him those first few games, that first game against Texas Tech that was played in August, it was just obvious as you saw the offense unfold the rest of the year, how dependent they were just immediately on Clarett, and then how they changed the offense with Troy Smith late in the 04 season to tailor to his skill set. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then Smith, then they had a really great group of receivers with Holmes, and Gonzalez, so they were able to kind of run the spread and open up that offense and be more explosive and get away a little bit more from that Tressel ball. But I would also say, I mentioned Tressel closed strong. The Tressel's last class in 11, I believe, was the Braxton Miller class, which was I think a top 5, top 6 class if you take a look at the ratings. Because if you remember, I mean, pretty much Meyer, and I mentioned this a few times, Meyer was talking about sometimes when, the cupboard being not as full as he thought it was. Do you remember him commenting on that when he first got to Ohio State?
Meyer said that, huh?
Well, he had said something about some of the position groups I thought being a little bit lacking in certain areas. I thought he made a comment along those lines about either the receiver group or something like that when he first took over Ohio State.
Okay.
Do you remember him saying something along those lines?
I remember John Cooper making that comment when he took over for Earl Bruce. I don't remember Urban Meyer saying that.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, if you stop to think about it, I mean, Urban Meyer won 24 games in a row with pretty much Jim Tressel's players, and got probably within one quarter away or one play away of playing for the national title in 2013 with pretty much Tressel's guys.
Sure.
I mean, but to be fair to Tressel, as I've always said, I mean, how many starters on the O2 team were John Cooper's players, right? Fair amount, if I'm not mistaken. I think I remember Keith Jackson made that point during the national championship game, and it never dawned on me when he said how many starters on that team were John Cooper's players. I just never thought about it. Maybe by that time I just so divorced myself from John Cooper, at that time, but yeah, a fair amount of those players were his players. Yeah. And I still think, if I'm not mistaken, a few of the starters on the 14 team were Tressel's recruits, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. So if you give Meyer complete credit for the 12 class, then those were the seniors on the 14 team would have been Tressel's last class, the 11 class.
Right. Yeah, the seniors that would have been on the 14 team were probably most of his recruits. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that the biggest difference is, I mean, just Meyer's ability to always recruit in the top 5 year in and year out was just unbelievable. I mean, just to consistently be, and that's why, unlike, Tressel, Urban Meyer never had a drop-off season. I mean, Tressel had an 0-4, down season, or something, a season mixed in there where it was kind of like a cycle down year. Whereas, Meyer was just consistently top 5 recruiting. So I think that's why you had that just straight line of consistency all 7 years.
For sure.
I think would be the difference. Well, as always, it's a pleasure talking college football with you, Mark.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Take care of yourself.
All right, let's get to our next call coming in here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Is it my turn?
It is your turn, George. Make it count.
Oh my God, there's a spammer in the chat right now. Some weird name you can't pronounce.
Oh boy, here we go.
I don't think there's a moderator.
Well, thank you.
He's made like 20 comments in a row.
Thank you for pointing that out because we can just get rid of them.
It just happened.
Yes, I see it. Okay. Got that cleaned up.
All right. I know this is a little sketchy, but if you just want to take advantage of the situation of marketing and the political climate in America, you could make a T-shirt that says Mark Rogers, Trump 2024, make America great again, right? And then you could make one that says Mark Rogers and Joe Biden. The hair on my legs turned blonde in the sun, and kids love to rub it and then watch them pop back up. Sometimes I love myself.
George, you've missed your calling. I don't know what exactly that calling is, but it's out there.
How about this? Make a T-shirt that says Mark Rogers TV. Please don't try to guess my gender. It puts a lot of pressure on me. How about that? That'd be popular.
I'm sure you could roll out these all night.
Just saying, we need to cater to all aspects of society, not just college football fanatics.
Well, if you heard me the other night rail on the NFL.
Here's one. Anybody that orders your T-shirt, they get a free lanyard with a card in it that says press lanyard for Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, so they can roam the sidelines on games.
You know what you've started, George. I'm looking at the live chat right now.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I was just joking. Come on. How about a shirt that just says Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football?
Well, I think we've got one of those here. That's what. Did you see the portion of the show where I displayed the shirt here?
Yes, I was
Okay.
actually watching it that time as I cooked dinner. I saw it. That wasn't bad. That's not bad.
Yeah. So
my first thought was, because I'm more of an executive type, I want one with just a little MR on it. It looks like Mr. maybe, just something subtle. I can wear to the club, to the squash club. A polo.
Yes, something classy.
I can't
Sure.
have that explosion yellow shit. Something I can wear on the golf course.
Yeah, we'll get you a
A
polo.
polo shirt. You can have a lapel.
Yeah. Egyptian cotton, 30 pounds, whatever.
Salmon.
Let's see what
Yeah,
we've
delicate
got
wash
here.
only.
We've got this is made by Gildan Ultra Cotton.
Is that a code word for GMO? I hope not.
Made in Haiti.
Ultra. Oh, man, that's so sad. I heard about the president of Haiti getting off last night. I bet he just made his great escape. He hired a body double, burned the guy, and flew off with his $40 billion. Let's think good thoughts.
All right, George. You waited this long
All right.
to tell us what?
Yes. As far as football goes, I just want people to be patient with Georgia. 1980 wasn't that long ago. I feel sorry for them.
I mean,
just because none of my kids were born now and they're in their 40s, I didn't have any kids in 80. I didn't have kids till 82, and they're all like 40 years old, and that's something. And Georgia hasn't ever won another title.
as a Florida fan, George, this is all you've got against this team, against this program you're hanging on
Hey,
to,
listen,
this 1980.
Florida is planning a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Georgia winning a national title. We're getting ready now. It's going to be a party. We're going to remember the 50-year anniversary of them winning something.
Should be a good time. We're 10 years away.
I just got to have edge about me for one team, and it's Georgia. It's Georgia. Because it's just the most hilarious thing I've seen. How can you have like 85 5-stars and lose to South Carolina? I don't get it. How can you start Stetson Bennett versus Florida? I had to put anybody in there. Anybody. I had to put a wide receiver in at quarterback. Stetson Bennett? Are you serious?
Yeah,
Was he like 5'6" or something?
that was a mystery beyond mysteries. But since he screwed up the Justin Fields portion of that too, it shouldn't be surprising. But
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett should be the quarterback at Georgia Southern.
Do you know why I'm saying this? I was reading a Georgia publication about Georgia, and they were heavy duty into statistics and quarterbacks. And they said if JT Daniels gets hurt and it's a big game like Florida, they're going to have to put Stetson in there because they're not starting a new quarterback against Florida. And I went, oh, dear Jesus, please let it happen. I beg of you. I got to see this. Do it again. Wouldn't that just be the best scenario you've ever, if you're a Gator fan? Please do it one more time.
Our Georgia guy, George, is telling us that if Stetson Bennett, if the injury is temporary, meaning that, okay, JT Daniels gets his bell rung, then Stetson Bennett's going to be the guy that go in there for 3 plays or a series or something like that. But if they got a plan long term, okay, JT Daniels just broke his leg, who's going to be our quarterback? It's not going to be Stetson Bennett.
It's just going to be so hilarious to watch this. I don't believe JT Daniels can make it through his season. He's been crippled before. I think he's never going to be the same. He did good against weak teams, Good job. I don't like Georgia that much. I don't know why. I think it's because of the way they talk on the internet. They're not humble at all for someone that's never won anything. they talk like they're Miami, like they got 5 national championships or something. I'm like, what am I missing here? They should be going, dear baby Jesus, can we please win once anything ever? But no, they're all like, we're better than you. I'm like, based on what?
So, George, you're in the category of only national championships count.
Only national championships count. Southeastern Conference championships don't count. And that's the best thing next to a national championship. They don't count.
Okay.
Dan Mullen came to Florida to win national championships. If he doesn't, we'll fire him. We're not like Georgia. We're not waiting 10 years.
I'm just clarifying, just trying to get a read. See, we're in 2 different camps when it comes to that. I think the national championship is way overrated.
Whatever. Our coach better figure out how to cheat like Kirby and Nick, or else he's gone. I'm like, are you serious? You don't know how to buy a player or what? Everybody else seems to be doing pretty good at it. That's off the record, though.
All right, George, I'm going to catch up with these other calls.
All right, go
I
Gators.
appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
We will take those T-shirt suggestions to
take those under advisement.
run with them. All right, George.
Run with them. Later.
Appreciate
and
it.
that's free. No copyright from me. Bye.
All right, we move on. Who do we have here? The voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus DeAndre, how you doing, bro?
I'm good. What's going on with you?
Good. I was asking you about Texas. I went and looked at their numbers from 1969 to 2001 when Matt Brown finally took off. And I saw they only had 10 Williams seasons. Now, our perception of Texas is that, just like Michigan, that they're supposed to be this real big dominant program. But why did they only have 10 win seasons? Because I know you can't say why, but it seems like they struggled a lot from 1969 to 2001. Because I always see people talk about how good Texas football is, high school football, but Texas, to me, is the only program that was like supposed to be a dominant program inside the state of Texas, and they really wasn't that good. When I say that good, I'm talking about compared to like Miami and Florida State coming up, or Florida, or Ohio State, even like on that standard of always being in the conversation for a national championship. I know you say national championships don't count, you don't count that heavily, but at least be in contention for national championships.
Yes,
so
contention for national championships, that's different. Contention, you know that I've got an issue with how the national championships are won or awarded. But when you're in contention for national championships, then you've shown that you're really good, that you're near the top.
Right.
So as I run through Texas off the top of my head, starting in 1969, right there in 1969, 70, 71, in that range, Texas was as good as anyone. Correct? Right. Yes. Okay. As we take our way through the 70s, Texas was on top of the Southwest Conference. They almost won it. They almost won a national championship in 1977. They lost to Notre Dame. They got destroyed by Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl that year, and Earl Campbell won the Heisman Trophy that year. So Texas throughout most of the 70s was really good. Are you looking at the records right now?
69, 11-0, which is good. Southwest Conference, 10-1 to 70. 71, 8-3. 72, 10-1. 73, 8-3. 74, 8-4. 75, 10-2. 76, 5-5-1. 77, 11-1. 78, 9-3. 79, 9-3. 80, 7-5. 81, 10-1-1. Then 82, 93, 83, 11-1. Then they didn't win over 8 games. Yeah. Okay.
Because 83 was the last time that they really had a shot to win the national championship. Had they not muffed a punt with about 4 minutes left in the game against Georgia. They were up 9-3 in the Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl.
That was the year that Miami, of course, beat Nebraska, and there were a number of teams with one
That's
loss,
one we
including
talk about a
Texas.
lot.
Texas would have been undefeated. Had that been the BCS era, Nebraska and Texas would have played for the national championship as the only undefeated teams. Yeah, we
Right.
talk about that a lot. So that was Fred Akers.
Right.
And that's the last time really they competed for a national championship for a long, long time. So throughout the 80s, I'll let you continue with the records because I love hearing the records. Through the 80s, they were good. They were like top 20 good. But they didn't have another good team until 1990. That 1990 team that got blasted by Miami in the Cotton Bowl. They were 10-1 before they lost the Cotton Bowl.
Well, 84, they were 7-4, 85, 8-4, then 86, 5-6, 87, 7-5, 88, 4-7, 89, 5-6, 90, 10-2, 91, 5-6, 92, 6-5, 5-5, 80, 94, 8-4, 10-2. So I think that's where Matt Brown probably came in there.
Yes.
And then 8-5, 96, then 97 for some reason they were 4-7. But then they started taking off. But I get what you're saying that they were decent, but to my knowledge, from what I remember about the Southwest Conference, there really wasn't that many great teams there, were there?
No.
I mean, you had to play Oklahoma every year. I know Houston had their run, but everybody else was on probation there. I don't remember Texas ever being on probation like the other schools
the
were.
Southwest Conference was great through the 70s, and then it really went downhill. And the Southwest Conference was not on par with the other conferences after that. Arkansas was decent, but SMU dropped off, of course, after their scandal, and all those teams, TCU and Texas Tech, all those teams were not anywhere close to being competitive nationally. And there was a season that I looked at recently, and I think it was the 1990 season, that Texas, the year that they won the Southwest Conference at 10-1, there was nobody else in the conference that was ranked. There was nobody above like 7-5 that year. And then one of the last years of the Southwest Conference, it might have been the last year, 1994, Texas Tech actually went to the Cotton Bowl as the conference champion, and they were 4-3 in the conference. And they were like 6-5 or 6-4-1. And there was like a 5-way tie for the conference championship at 4-3, and Texas Tech won the tiebreaker. They went to the Cotton Bowl and played Keyshawn Johnson and USC, and they got obliterated like 55-14. Yeah, the Southwest Conference for about the last 10 years of about the last 10 years of its existence was not that good. Arkansas was pretty good, but they were one of those kind of teams that they were good. They had a good record. They were top 15 good, but when they ran into somebody like really good, they would get trampled, like Texas did against Miami.
Right. Okay. Now, we were talking about Blue Bloods the other day, and I heard you mention, I might be mistaken, but you said that you thought Penn State was Blue Bloods?
I said, and this might have been to you at some point, that my Blue Bloods are Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, USC. And if there were two schools that I would go to next, it's Penn State and Nebraska.
Okay. So I think, I can understand those. Well, why would you put Penn State in there? Would you put Pitt in there before you would put Penn State?
No.
I
know you're going to name these national championships for Pitt in 1926, and
but they were better than Penn State for a long time. Am I correct? I mean, I know Penn State took over in the 80s and they were good in the 70s, but Pitt was a lot better program for it.
You think if we looked up Penn State's all-time record and Pitt's, they would be that close?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe you might. Where you said it, I know. but like I said, national championships, historical players, and don't get me wrong, Penn State got plenty of them too. But I mean, I think Hugh Green, that was the first person to ever finish that high in the Heisman, right?
Well, historical players, you make a great point there, because I think a lot of people would be surprised the players that came out of Pitt. Of course, you mentioned Hugh Green, Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, Mike Ditka,
Larry Fitzgerald.
Bill Moss was a great player, Larry Fitzgerald, Curtis Martin.
Yeah,
but
I'm saying,
but this is one of the reasons, DeAndre, I get sick of the national championship being thrown out there as the end all be all. Joe Paterno won 2 national championships. The 2 years he won a national championship, he lost games, and he had 3 other seasons he went undefeated and didn't win the national championship. Now, what else can you do besides go undefeated?
I don't know, man. That's just crazy. But like I said, I always point back to 1978 with Clemson, Oklahoma, and Alabama, USC.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. USC beat Alabama by 2 scores in Tuscaloosa. Clemson had the same record.
Right.
Isn't USC, you know, if you're going to be fair, then you split the national championship and just say everybody who went 11-1 won the national championship. But if you're saying we only want 1 national championship, so we're going to have to evaluate how well these teams played beyond their record, doesn't USC beating Alabama head-to-head by 2 scores in Tuscaloosa, doesn't that decide the national championship? And it's not like USC lost to some horrible team like Ohio State did a couple years ago, and they lost, by 5 touchdowns. I don't remember the game, but they lost to a really good team by like a field goal. So
Purdue, I think it was, right?
Well, I'm talking about the USC.
Oh, okay. That was Arizona State.
Yeah,
I think it was Arizona State.
Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering because I was wondering. I wanted to get the Blue Blood Crusher shirt, and why did you put Penn State in there? Like on the second tier of Blue Bloods up there. Why not Pitt? Because Pitt, like I said, it's not a takeaway for anything for Penn State, but Pitt played more legendary teams. You know what I'm saying? Like they used to play Notre Dame when Notre Dame was good. I know Penn State played good teams, but Pitt used to go all over and play everybody too. I'm not saying Penn State didn't do that, but I remember more Pitt doing it. I know Penn State went down to Alabama and Nebraska a few times, but Pitt also did it too.
I'm going to go to your argument, which I think is a very good one. I use it all the time. I think it's very valid that we have to kind of question anything that happened before roughly 1970 because of the black athlete not being on the field or just being on the field for certain teams. And so that's when Pitt was at its best, except for the 70s. Pitt was great to about Marino was pretty much the end of Pitt's dominance. They had a really good team, 81, 82. They had a number 1 team. Jackie Sherrill had a number 1 team that lost to Penn State at the end of the year. And then Pitt was preseason number 1, and they underachieved and lost to Eric Dickerson and Craig James in the Cotton Bowl in 82. But after that, when has Pitt been any better than 8-4, 9-3? And that was we're starting to talk about 1983 being a long time ago. That was 40 years ago. So Pitt has done basically nothing in 40 years.
Right. That's true.
And then for most of those 40 years, Penn State's been good, if not really good. Most of those 40 years.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that point. Let me ask you this. Why wouldn't you put the Washington Huskies in that category?
Wow. Well, I would plead ignorance pre-1970-75 with that. I'd have to go back and look at what Washington football was doing because I know they weren't going to Rose Bowls. That's for sure. They didn't show up at Rose Bowls during the 50s and 60s and, pre the time that I'm, will call myself, I don't want to say an expert, but close to one. So Don James really built that team, built that program, and in this, starting in the late 70s. And they were as good as anybody in the Pac-12 in the 80s. They had really good runs during the 80s. They, of course, split a national championship in 91. So they've got one national championship. And again, I know I'm the guy that discredits national championships, but I'm basically saying they had the one season that they were really that good. 2000, they had an argument to play in the national championship game, just like Florida State and Miami did. They could have been in the national championship game in 2000. Yeah, I think
but if you go by what they done did,
they're down the line.
If you go by what they done did, I mean,
they're in the top 15.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about to say, because I like, they have some pretty good, and they're more, I mean, like, if you look at what we go by from 1969, 1970 time period, I would think it would be in the top 10, wouldn't you?
Washington?
Top 10, maybe. I'm trying to go down on this. Well, Florida State and Miami will be.
If we're going to go if we're going to go post 1970, then suddenly, Florida State, Miami, Florida's ahead of Washington. Ohio State's ahead of them. Michigan's ahead of them. Alabama, obviously, and Texas, Washington. That might be actually a good comparison. Because what you just ran down from Texas from 84 to 01 is pretty awful. It's not good at all for Texas.
Well, I would ask you this. How would you compare Clemson and Texas since 1969? Because that would be a very good comparison. Because Clemson, people always say, this Clemson good to dabble. Yeah, I'm about to say that because Clemson, I don't forget how good Clemson was. You always say I started in 1977. So from 1977, 76, Clemson had a pretty good run up to when Danny Hatfield took over in 1992. And I always bring that up to people. I say, you just like Clemson when Dabo got there and he started winning. I said, nah. I mean, Clemson was good in the 80s. And I mean, I was a baby in the 70s, so I didn't know nothing about football outside my uncle played there. So, I said they were good. They was on probation those 3 years they stepped in the 90s. I mean, in the 80s. But most of the point, if you start off in 1969, and I give it to Ohio State. Some people want to say Michigan, but I know you got to put records in there. But I mean, I got to say you got to show something for that record. I mean, Ohio State has 3 national championships, and since 1979, 69.
And they played for more. Where Michigan was never playing for a national championship. Like Ohio State won those 3, but then they also were playing for more. Like last year, of course, where Michigan is never even, other than 97, they weren't even playing for national championships.
Right. And that's my point is like, are you in contention for a national championship? And then also what I count against Michigan, why I have such a problem with them, look at their Rose Bowl record since that time period. I don't think they had a successful Rose Bowl championships. I mean, Rose Bowls when they were top dog. I got an interesting one for you, Mark.
Yep.
If you switch Michigan and Wisconsin, would Michigan have a better record?
What do you mean switched? Oh, they took out in the division?
Division. Yeah. Would Michigan be better?
Well, a lot of people would automatically say yes, but I think people don't give the Big Ten Western Division enough credit. If I've done the math, and the divisions are pretty even. Everybody just looks at Ohio State, and they win the conference. They win the Big Ten championship game. So the East always wins the Big Ten championship game, but the records between the two divisions it's almost even. So if you take Michigan and put them over there, I will say that right now it's very similar. But in the past, because of Ohio State and because Penn State was really good for 4 or 5 years, and Michigan State was really good and better than Michigan because of D'Antonio from about 07 to 17 for 9-10 years. Michigan State was better. Michigan would have done better in the West. But there was no Western Division for a lot of that time as well. The divisions were mixed up until 24. So the divisions we currently have in the Big Ten have only been in place since 2014. Before that, Michigan was in a division with Nebraska, and Wisconsin was with Ohio State, and it was all mixed up. It didn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering, because I look at people and, when they bring up, Texas, Michigan, I'm like, well, if you really look at I was like, not really. Even, I know Notre Dame was spending contentions for national championships. Outside of that, the one they lost to Alabama, a lot of people don't really think they deserve that one. I mean, deserve to be in the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And each time they've been smoked, but they have been there, though. I mean, and I think the college football playoff committee, when they come out with this 12 people schedule, I think they need to sit down and say, look, Notre Dame, either get in a conference or you're not going to be invited. And the reason why I say that, and I know why Notre Dame does it, because Notre Dame wants to play USC and Stanford every year. But I think everybody, if you're going to go to this new system, I think you need to have 9 games per year. I didn't know this, and you're not from North Carolina, so you probably don't care. But before last year, Duke and NC State didn't play for 6 years. That's ridiculous. And they're like 30 minutes away from each other. They haven't played in 6 years until last year. I'm like, y'all need to do something about these conference schedules. They need to be more equal and stuff like that. And I really think they need to. I think they need to go ahead on to fix that. Everybody need to play 9. Notre Dame, you're gonna need to be in there. I'm to the point. I don't know which conferences are gonna be. I'm to the point. I think the Big 12 needs to be. I think the Big 12 needs to be dissolved into the other conferences. But I know that's not going to happen because nobody wants to let Texas in because of their TV contract. So, but I think they need to be dissolved into other conferences.
Well, DeAndre,
I don't know where they would go, man.
I've fixed all this conference scheduling mess. I've already fixed this.
Oh yeah.
Somebody just needs to listen to me.
Yeah. I know you have, but I know there's another round of fixing coming up. Well, I know I have heard from a friend that's an AD that you might see some conferences expand, and I think the ACC is going to start. And I think it's going to be Cincinnati and UConn, because I know people say, well, UConn not even playing football. But they want UConn because of basketball, and UConn get their program together. And he's an AD in the ACC, and here.
So DeAndre, I'm sorry, before I let you go, because I've got 4 calls stacked up here, I will just say one thing about what you were talking about before with Clemson not getting the credit that it deserves prior to Dabo and all of that. This is the reason why, is that except for people like you and I, and there's not many of us running around, is that basically anybody that you grab that's a college football fan, all they care about and all that they know about is since they've been watching. So if they're 30 years old, they've been watching since they were 15, they only know the last 15 years. And before that, all they know is who won national championships. And if you didn't win a national championship,
I know.
They don't know if Clemson stacked up a bunch of 9-2 seasons. That's the same as them going 2-9. They have no idea.
Yeah, I know. But all right, Mark, man, I'll be keep listening to the show.
Thanks, DeAndre. Appreciate it, man.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye.
All right. Dinner is going to be late tonight. Let's get through these calls. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
What's up, Mark? This is SPH from Huntsville.
SPH, it's good to hear from you. What's going on?
How you doing? Nothing much, man. I had some real quick, because I know you got some other callers, real quick points I want to get across about this NIL, if I could. Been seeing a lot of fans chime in on it, and I don't think a lot of fans quite understand really what this is. They thinking these kids are just going to go out and, I guess, make buku cash and things of that nature, when that's not the case at all. I coach these kids now. As you already know, former college player. Let me explain something to these people real quick. I don't know if these people really realize what go into playing college football. I know some people sit at home on their couch and they think it's just practice and go to the games on Saturday and have a great time. They don't understand what goes into college football. The 6 a.m. workouts. They don't understand the 2 times a day workouts in the summer. They don't understand you got a chemistry class at 9 o'clock. You got class that got practice that morning at 6, weights that morning at 6, brush back to the dorm, take a shower, go to class real quick. It's a full-time job to play college football at any level. I'm assuring people of that. As far as the young men benefiting off their name, image, and likeness, I love it because for far too long, the scholarship has been the exact same. I played ball in 95 through 98, and the scholarship is no different, besides a few legal snacks that can actually give the young men now outside of the cafeteria hours. They can actually do that without getting penalized, like they're giving the athletes something. I was on a panel earlier here in my home city at the high school where we was going back and forth about these things, and people kept bringing up about, they have their scholarship. I think people that never played college sports don't quite understand that, yes, the scholarship do pay for your tuition, your room, your board, your books, your cafeteria, everything that comes with being an athlete and a student in the university. But to be real and step outside all the political stuff and all of that, just to be human and humble, I assure you the scholarship, some of these kids don't help you at 12 o'clock at night when you're starving to death and you don't have no money in your account. I assure you that scholarship paper, salt and pepper, is not going to help it. I assure you that. Doesn't help it at all. A lot of times when you're playing college ball, you come from different financial backgrounds. It's no thing to have teammates to have $3,000 or $4,000 in their account when they get to school. It's no thing to have some teammates with $3 or $4 in their account when they get to school. Some of these kids, parents, whether they believe it or not, really can't afford to send them $100 here, $100 there. They just can't. So when the cafeteria closed, you're on your own, buddy. Your teammates, they help you out as much as they can. And believe it or not, it's a lot of kids that come from these backgrounds. So when you're driving down the Parkway and you see, and Tua's an athlete, and you see Tua's face on a billboard here in Bama, that some guy that owns a Winnebago company and he's connected with universities selling Winnebagos, and his face on the, and you don't even know who this guy is. The parents are driving down the street and seeing this, not the team, Tua's face, as if he's endorsing this Winnebago company, and he can do nothing about it. I feel some kind of way about that. Think about this, all you people out there that's listening. If you have a son, I own a business on University Boulevard. Your son's a star. I'm connected with the university. I can take your son's face and put it wherever I want and make money off of it as if your son endorses me. I don't have a clue who your son is. If I passed you in Walmart, I would know who you was. Think about that. That's all legal. It's all legal. Not anymore. Not anymore. Use these kids' name, their image, their likeness while they're students. These kids get a piece of that. It's not about, I've heard everything from kids being distracted to it causing friction in the locker room. Let me explain something real fast. The stars of the locker room already get the advantages to people that don't know. They already get the girls, the media time, the extra coaching. All players in the locker room are not treated the same. For all the people that think they are, I'm telling you they're not. I just want to tell people that I was at the VTO camp here recently. I was at the Nike camp. I was at the Rivals camp on June 18th. And I'm telling you what these kids are saying. These kids in 2021 are very smart. These kids have TikTok followers. They have Instagram followers in the in the 30 and 40,000, some close to 100,000, and the university telling them you can't benefit off of that at all. That's hypocritical to me. That's very hypocritical to me. You know what I mean? If you want to keep it strictly football, then let's keep it strictly football. You pay for my tuition, I'll play football, and we'll call it even, right? But that's not the case. Everybody everywhere is getting a piece of the pie with these kids. You know, everybody, these businesses, these institutions, everywhere. The scholarship has not changed. But I tell you what has changed, ticket prices. I tell you what has changed, these universities' budgets. And now you're adding more games. So please don't tell me that these are college athletes. I don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? This is about money. It's about big business. College football is slowly becoming what the NFL model is. It's about more games, more business, more eyeballs, more pocket money. So if that's the case, allow these kids to make money off of their own likeness. And if for all you old dudes out there, for all you old traditionalists, I'm going to tell you exactly what a kid told me at the Rivals camp. If these old dudes are not going to help us and teach us about this game so we can do better and profit on ourselves, then move the TF out the way. That's what he told me. He told me. These kids are social media savvy. They're way ahead of what we was when we was in college. You know, social media is here. Name, image, likeness is here. Why do you think Congress ruled in their favor? Because they realized the hypocrisy in this. You know, I understand that you could possibly think you may go one way and, you know, this kid getting this amount of money. I understand that. But think about this as a fan. The quarterback has always been the star, man. Nothing different about that. The quarterback, the running back, these guys have always been the media attention. They've always been the stars. That's nothing different. All I would ask the fans to do is stop looking at it like it's going to be such a prideful distraction and realize this college football that we think is so college, so university, it's not college anymore. It's not. They tell us it's college football, but I assure you the powers that be, NCAA, college CFP, whatever you want to call it, these guys are in the business of making money. I assure you of that. And these kids understand that now. They understand it. They're rolling with it, and they're doing what they got to do to profit off their name, their image, and their likeness. And I applaud it. It's way, way overdue. Just want to take that little time, Mark, and say that. I appreciate you taking my call as you do, and I'll continue to support.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So there's a lot there to unpack. I'm not going to address all of that right now. I have in a number of opportunities and will continue to do so because I agree with about 90% of what he had to say. I do think that there are some counterpoints to a few of those, but I generally agree. We can't have it both ways. We cannot have the performance at the level that we do and have all the games on television and have all the convenience of all the things that we want, these massive stadiums and TV networks and all the games on TV, and have elite play on the field, and then also treat these guys as complete college students that only practice, just practice 2 hours a day, go to the game on Saturday, play, don't film study, don't lift weights, have an actual off season that they don't have. So it can't be both ways. They can't be treated. I would like to see the purity of 1950s or 60s football. I'm just throwing out a general time frame. One of the best illustrations and explanations of this that I've ever heard, and I heard it on 2 separate occasions, was when I went to luncheons with Jim Delaney, the former Big Ten commissioner, and he very explicitly and succinctly described what college athletics looked like when he was a big time college athlete, not a great player, but he played varsity basketball at North Carolina. Well, that's as high as you can get. He was a varsity player on national championship teams at North Carolina. And he described what was demanded of them in the late 60s, roughly 1970, of them at that point as big-time college athletes versus what is required of these athletes today. And it's not even close. He described a situation back in 1968, 1970 that you would expect of a high school athlete today. And they've probably even pushed past that. So we want this elite level play, and we want all the things that come with the entertainment side of that. Well, then they need to be treated to an extent. We're treating them, the demands on them are close to professionals. And with the class load that they have, it's actually beyond what is expected of NFL players. Therefore, they have to be compensated. If we want to go back to 1960, that's obviously never going to happen. But if we want to do that, then we start just saying, okay, you practice 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, not every day, 5 days a week. You get the weekends off. You don't go to all this film room study. We're going to limit the number of games you play, and all those things are going to take place. But that, of course, again, is not going to happen. The way it accelerated this way is because teams determined, okay, the better we are at football, the more we can win games and sell tickets and get better TV position. Therefore, we're going to push the rules. And the rules just kept getting stretched and stretched and stretched in terms of off-season conditioning and off-season this and off-season that, and the number of hours a week. And even that wasn't monitored the way that it should be. And all of it it became a job. It is a job. I would value the scholarship a little bit more than our last caller did. But again, I won't go through all that because he makes a great point that there should be financial aid, reasonable financial aid given to those players that need it. They're treated well. They're treated like royalty when they're under the guides of the football program. But as he very explicitly and accurately stated, based on what I know, and he knows a lot more about the situations within the campus. Now, I haven't stepped on a campus in 20 years and talked to players like I used to. Once they're outside the guides of the football program, then they're out of luck. And if they don't have the resources and their families don't, that's where we have failed these athletes. That's mostly where they've been failed, is from that standpoint. Number one, just basic provision. They're treated like kings, and I think that's gotten out of hand, but that's not going to return to normalcy either. You know, the plush locker rooms and all the stuff that they see, they're also treated in good ways and in bad ways as professionals. They're treated. They've been treated, most of them, not all of them, most of them have been treated, with the red carpet treatment since they were 10 or 12 years old. But they're also demanded upon, unlike anybody else. They're treated like professionals. So they need to be compensated to a certain extent. I think the scholarship is extremely valuable. It's worth a lot of money. And again, I've made this statement, and many of you watching me right now and listening to me could make the same statement. You value the scholarship even more when you have one of your children who, despite receiving different grants and so forth and compensation, has to bear that financial load of 4 years of school along with myself. So we're sharing that responsibility. So the scholarship is worth a lot. Believe me, I can show you numbers of statements of bills. So the scholarship is worth a lot, but it's not everything. And we've put so much on these athletes, and then everybody else profits from it. Everybody else becomes a millionaire from it. Why can't they go to a dealership and sign autographs? Why can't they go on social media and push a product and make some money? They should. We're Americans. We live in America. It's a free society to earn money, to be a capitalist. They should have access to all that. We've taken way too long to get to this point. And some of it I don't like, but that's the college football fan in me that would like to go back to 1975. But that's not going to happen. I don't like the transfers. I don't like players playing for different teams. I would like to think that college football is sacred and different than professional football, that everybody plays for one school, but that's not real life. That's not the real world. That's a fairyland and yesteryear scenario. But I do like, as an Ohio State fan, and pick your team, don't you like the current state of the NFL where you can watch a game and say, hey, like Mike Williams here, thank you so much for the super chat. Mike can look at various games on a Sunday in the NFL and say, look at my Miami players. They're Miami players. They didn't play for anybody else. When we talk about pick a player in the NFL, a prominent player who played for multiple teams, we can have an argument. Is Peyton Manning a Bronco or a Colt? Well, he played for both of them, went to Super Bowls for both of them, won Super Bowls for both of them. Is he a Bronco or a Colt? So there's something lost there, where your Miami football fan like Mike can watch an NFL Sunday and say, my Miami guys were always Miami guys. We're not going to be able to say that anymore. And that's, to me, unfortunate. It's not the end of the world. It's more important that these guys are compensated fairly than it is for me just to be able to point to the TV screen and say, Santonio Holmes didn't play 2 years at Ohio State and then leave and go play at Auburn. And Ted Ginn didn't play 2 or 3 years at Ohio State and then leave and go play at USC for a year to finish his career, to where you can say, is he really a Buckeye? I guess he is. He's kind of a free agent. All right, let's take our next call here at the Voice of College Football, and I will remind everyone that you can reach me on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV, and thank you for the contribution. Hello, who's on the line?
My name's William, and I'm an LSU fan, and I want to talk about the whole NIL deal and how it will affect college football.
Sure.
Okay. You know how the NIL, it's going to change college football forever. You can't stop it. These kids, they won't go to an LSU, an Alabama, a Clemson, a Michigan, an Ohio State for the big rival games anymore. They will go to who can get their name out better. It's all about who can get their name out better now. But it's been coming sooner. People might not like it, but it's been coming. People can't stop what's coming in the future. It's knocking on the door. These kids, yes, they get a free scholarship. They get free this. But whenever you see some kid wearing a Joe Burrow jersey, a Justin Fields jersey, and they're not making money off of that, that's kind of like, that stings a little, because they've been, is that all right if I cuss?
Yes, you can cuss in limited ways. No problem there.
They've been working their ass off on the field, but they don't get any money because they're like a star player for Ohio State, Miami, Notre Dame, but some Billy Goat from down south can sell their jersey for $200 and they don't get any money off of it. It's insane. They can't do anything about it. This is why the NIL is here, to stop that, to where these players can make $200 off their jerseys, $200 off their video game, $200 off of this, that. You brought up like the scholarship deal. Yes, they do get a free ride. They get free everything, but in their mind, college is like a high school to them. They're trying to get to the pros. The only way they'll get into the pros is who has the better marketing, who can get their name out, and who's a better school, and who's all this. It's not about big rivalries anymore. It's about who can get your name out better than the other.
Whoa.
It's now about money.
Let me just stop you real quick here. So I'm on board with everything that you're saying. Basically, you're stating the obvious. It's already happened. July 1st came and went, and this is wide open, and it's legal, so it's happening. Okay. The only thing I can disagree with that you just stated was them taking advantage of NIL is not helping them go to the NFL. Their performance on the field will dictate whether they're going to play in the NFL. The NIL is allowing them to earn money while they're in college. So if some of these guys focus too much on NIL and let their performance, if we're talking, I'm not talking about the best player in the country. I'm talking about guys that have a shot at the NFL, but they need to maximize their performance. If they're too wrapped up in their TikTok and not their 5th round draft grade, and they let their performance slide, they're screwing themselves and not understanding that the $1,500 deal that they just made on TikTok isn't anything close to what they just blew because they didn't perform up to a standard to get drafted in the NFL. So there's going to be some people make some stupid moves, just like they're making stupid moves right now, declaring themselves for the NFL draft and overestimating their ability, and then they don't make an NFL roster.
Okay, this is if they had to choose between a 5th round draft pick being drafted in the 5th round of the NFL draft or going on TikTok, because this girl named Livy Dunn, she's making $2.2 million off of this app TikTok. That's most than anybody in the country's ever made.
That's one person.
Also, that one app. I can name a lot more that's made boatloads of money off this app, and they're living in LA right now, living their dream. I can name a lot more. If they had to choose between being a 5th round draft pick in the NFL or going on TikTok and being the next, I don't know, the next Logan Paul, Jake Paul, they'll sign the papers right now to do it.
I understand what you're saying, but I think we're getting lost here in something. If they're going to be TikTok stars, then they don't need to be college football. There's all sorts of people that have risen from nowhere to become TikTok stars. But if their focus is on being football stars, but they also want to take advantage of NIL, that's great. That's fine. I'm just saying that if they devote too much time and attention toward that, and they just make $1 here and $1 there, and they don't fully maximize their football potential. And I'm not talking about the best players in the country. I'm not talking about a Joe Burrow type. I'm talking about a guy that needs to play his very best to make an NFL roster, and he's making a little bit of pocket change on social media through NIL. He's probably invested his attention in the wrong direction. That's all I'm saying.
I see. This is my last question. It has to do with the defense starting from 2013 and 16. It seems like the defense, like Alabama's defense, they've known to be this badass defense that no one can stop them. It seems like defense nowadays, there's no more 30 yards cloud of dust anymore. It's about who can score 60 first or who can outscore your opponent. I think the defenses, they're like, you don't really need a defensive coordinator anymore. You just need a high-powered offense and outscore your opponent to win. Like, I'm going back from whenever Alabama played LSU in 2011. That first game, the final score was 9-6. That was won in the trenches. You won't see that ever again. You won't. You will be seeing a 46-49 game. Defenses are gone. You can't bring it back anymore.
All right. I understand your point. It's an offensive sport today, much more than it's ever been. Absolutely. What you're saying there is correct. Okay. But one of the best ways still to win a championship is to have the high-powered offense that is complemented by a capable, if not by today's standards, great defense. Because if all you're doing is trading touchdowns with the other team, if you've got a horrible defense and a great offense, but other teams like Alabama have a great offense and a really good defense, what is that really good defense going to do? Are they going to shut down a great offense? No, they're not going to shut them down. But that's not the standard anymore. The standard anymore is not to hold a team to like the 2009 Alabama defense holding teams to 9 points a game. Nobody can do that anymore. But the great defenses hold teams to 25 points a game, not 45 points a game. And those are the teams that are going to win championships. So you still need a capable defense, if not a great defense. But let me finish my point. A great defense in today's world, you cannot compare statistically to years ago because they're facing prolific offenses. So a great defense today may give up 25 points a game, but that defense is still just as important as it was 15 years ago.
I agree with you. To win a national championship nowadays is if you can hold a team, it's third down on the 30-yard line. If you can hold them just twice in one game, hold them twice without scoring, and your offense is lights out, best offense in the world, and you win the game by 2, your defense did the job, even though you won 45 to 35. You still did great. But people I'm an SEC fan, but the SEC, whenever they see a 55 to 45 game, people hammer the defensive coordinator saying he needs to be out because we want that 21-17 game or even that 9-6 game. We like to see LSU, whenever it's third down and 5, the crowd goes nuts. It mind bladders. You can't compare it. But now, whenever an LSU scores 45 points, and say a Georgia Southern scores 25 points, people are leaving the stands. They don't care anymore. All they care about is all they just really care about now is they just want just a good game. But now it's not really a good game. It's just pretty much lopsided.
Okay. Let's review the last 3 national championship runs. How many points did Alabama give up in the playoffs last year? Notre Dame, 14, Ohio State, 24. That's not many points. 2019, LSU gave up Oklahoma, 28, and most of those were garbage, didn't mean anything. And Clemson, 25, with the best quarterback in college football with Trevor Lawrence, a number 1 NFL draft pick, 25 points. The year before, Clemson won a national championship in 2018. They gave up 3 points to Notre Dame and 16 to a great Alabama offense. Defense still matters.
It does. But if you look back from 2019 LSU run, what finally kicked them into gear with a good or just a decent defense was after that Ole Miss game. That's what kicked them into gear. Because that's whenever they just started just shutting down people. They shut down Georgia 37-10, and no one thought that LSU would be able to do that in 2019. They thought maybe Georgia might score 28 points that game, and LSU would have won that game. I'm not saying they would have lost, but they would have won that game. But people thought Georgia would score at least 28 points that game.
Well, I appreciate the call.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good night. All right. Was he not just proving my point more? Anyway, welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hello, man. My name's Austin. I just wanted to say that the Miami Hurricanes are going to win the national championship this year.
Okay. It's quite the prediction.
That's it. Have a good night, Mark.
Okay. Thanks for the call. That would be something else, wouldn't it? We haven't seen a season like that. Let's say Miami starts the season number 13 or 14 in the country. There'll be something in that range, somewhere between 10 and 15. We've not seen a team rise from that position since Florida State in 2013. I think Florida State was number 11 preseason. And of course, one of the reasons why they had a redshirt freshman quarterback by the name of Jameis Winston that people couldn't wait to see, but he was unproven, of course, and they won the national championship. Keep in mind that if you go to the last 8 national championship games, so that means there are 16 teams competing in those 8 games, out of those 16 teams that played in the last 8 national championship games, half of them had starting quarterbacks playing the national championship game that basically had no experience starting that season. So when you look at maybe Ohio State's situation, Alabama's situation, those two in particular, yes. Would you rather have a quarterback who's already proven himself like Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence? Of course. Justin Fields? Yes. But quarterbacks make national championship games now that had no experience going into the season because they are elite quarterbacks from a talent perspective, and they're surrounded by elite players and great coaching. All right, everyone. I appreciate everyone here. I've got a busy day on Thursday with all sorts of records. But in addition to that, we've got our Miami show at 5, the other Miami show at 7. I think that's it in regards to live shows tomorrow. Thank you, Mike Williams, so much for the Super Chat contribution. I will divide that by 3 hours and figure out what my pay is tonight. Appreciate that. All right, everyone, thank you so much for all that you do. Please hit the like button. That helps the YouTube algorithms. And please let people know that we're here talking college football all the time. This channel has grown because of you, not because of me. This channel has grown because of you, because for years and years and years, I had 100 subscribers or 300 subscribers. Now I've got 26,000. Is that something to brag about? No. Hopefully we grow even more, but we got to 26,000 because of you. So I'll continue to talk college football with you. We'll continue to have that conversation. What I need you to do is to go out and let people know that we are here. And if they are a fan of a particular team, that we've got a team channel, most likely for them. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, the SEC, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Oregon, USC, Notre Dame. Right here, the voice of college football. See you next time.